planning commission days. Those were so fun.
I will now call the March 4th, 2024 Blue Springs City Council meeting to order. We're going to stand in just a minute and have a pledge of allegiance that will be led by the 4-H Club. Why don't you make your way up? All you with the green shirts on. Yeah, come in front of this podium here and kind of stand there. You can step back a little bit so you can see the flag. You're going to face this way. You're going to face this way. Kind of spread yourself out there and come in and act like you like each other, okay? Now we're going to stand. We're going to have a moment of silence. And when I turn around and look at you, you start leading everybody in the Pledge of Allegiance. Is that clear? All right. Let us stand.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, 4-H. Next, we have the confirmation of a quorum.
Councilmember Kaler,
Present.
Levisay.
Here.
Fowler.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Edmondson.
Here.
Culpepper.
Present.
Mayor Ross.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Next, we have the consent agenda. Unless there are items need to be pulled, I accept the motion for approval.
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Kaler,
Aye.
Levisay.
Aye.
Fowler.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Edmondson.
Aye.
Culpepper.
Aye.
Mayor Ross.
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
Before we go to the public hearing, if any of you are parked directly in front of this facility, you could be towed because that is not a city lot. So the city lot is right there to the east. We'll let you know just in case. On the public hearing, we're gonna have a staff report, then we can have the applicant come talk, and then we'll have those in favor of and those opposed. Now I have a whole lot of these documents on those that are opposed. When you come up, you'll have 3 minutes, but I do not want you repeating things already been said, because we'll be here all night and we're not gonna do that. So for those, when I call your name, you can come up. But the other thing we're gonna do, and we're gonna do this right now to help expedite, those that I have speaker appearance forms on, we're gonna have you stand and take the oath. So if you plan to speak tonight, we need you to stand up right now. And we're gonna listen to the stenographer over here. He's gonna give you instructions.
Everybody raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right, so when you come up, you don't have to do that. You'll just be able to come up, state your name, and give your address. Okay? Okay, we're gonna go to our city clerk.
Mayor, the city has one exhibit to enter into the record, City Council Information Form dated February 27th, 2024, with the following attachments. Photos submitted in opposition for City Council, staff report with attachments, application with attachments, affidavit of publication in the KC Star on February 11th, 2024, 185-foot notification map, names, addresses of property owners within 185 feet of the site, copy of letter sent to said property owners, affidavit of publication in the Examiner on July 29th, 2023, 185-foot notification map, names, address of property owners within 185 feet of site, copy of letter sent to said property owners, Title IV Land Use Section Blue Springs Code of Ordinances by reference, and 2014 Comprehensive Plan by reference, bill approving rezoning, and bill approving general development plan. This is all we have to enter for the record.
Thank you. Staff report.
Adair Bright, 903 West Main Street, on behalf of the city. Before we get started, I did want to let you know we have received 7 zoning protest petitions, which is 10.65% of the surrounding land area of 185 feet buffer. Therefore, supermajority or a 5-7 vote is not required for the rezoning application because we have not hit that 30% required.
Okay.
Okay, before you this evening are requests for a rezoning and a general development plan for Hoot Owl Meadows, a proposed single-family development at the southwest corner of East Wyatt Road and South Litchford Road. The current property includes 2 parcels on approximately 133.43 acres and is zoned county agriculture. The subject property has previously had 3 separate projects proposed, the first being Gibson Estates with 634 units and a density of 2.82 dwelling units per acre. The second was Gibson Ridge PRO with 480 residential lots and a density of 2.13 dwelling units per acre. And the third and most recent was Proverbs Estates Villas and Townhomes with 262 units and a density of 3.44 dwelling units per acre. The first request is to rezone the subject property from county agriculture to large lot single family. The 2014 comprehensive plan included the subject property as neighborhood, which is defined as areas for residential living arranged in a connected pattern of streets and blocks to provide access to civic and neighborhood amenities. The S2 area plan classifies the subject property as low-density residential, mixed-density residential, and natural areas. Both the comprehensive plan and the area plan identify that there should be 1 to 5 dwelling units per acre on the subject property. The intent of the SF12 zoning district is to accommodate low-density residential development on lots that are much larger than found within the city's standard single-family subdivisions. The second request is for a general development plan covering the entire 133.43 acre property. The proposed development includes 231 single-family lots and 12 open space tracts. The property is proposed to be developed in 8 phases beginning at the north, adjacent to East Wyatt Road, and working south through the site. The applicant is proposing 2 access points to the development, one off East Wyatt Road and one off South Litchford Road. All internal streets will be public, and there are 2 proposed future connections to the west, which will connect to South Strout Road when the property to the west develops. The developer will be required to construct full-width roadway improvements for 700 feet of East Wyatt Road, starting on the west side and moving east. The developer will also be required to construct half roadway improvements along the remaining portions of Wyatt and Litchford, along with an 8-foot wide multi-use path along both frontages. The proposed land use on the property is detached housing, and the proposed density is approximately 1.73 units per acre, which is on the low end of the recommendation per the S2 area plan. The proposed building type follows the detached house large lot building type standards, with a few modifications being requested. The applicant is requesting to decrease the minimum frontage width to a minimum of 81.15 feet on 40 lots, which staff supports due to the curvature of the proposed streets. The applicant is also requesting to exceed the maximum frontage width on 4 lots because of their location on a corner or a cul-de-sac. The applicant is also requesting to exceed the maximum lot size for 1 lot to allow for 1.41 acres because of the depth of the lot created by the adjacent existing parcel. Staff is supportive of all requests because staff believes the applicant is still meeting the intent of the code and the proposed zoning district by providing lots that are much larger than found within the city's standard single-family subdivisions, as the average lot size is 0.38 acres or 16,500 square feet. The SF12 zoning district requires that a minimum of 10% of the site be open space, and the applicant is proposing that 20% of the site will remain as open space. The plan also shows a trail and a clubhouse with a pool for the amenities. Also, parts of the stream buffer will remain natural due to existing topography in the stream and associated stream buffer. The applicant is required to provide 2 off-street parking spaces per dwelling unit, which the applicant will meet and exceed with the 2-car garages proposed. The plan also shows a 5-foot wide ADA compliant sidewalk along one side of the street, which is required per the UDC. The applicant has also provided a conceptual landscape plan, which will be reviewed in greater detail with the administrative site plan design review that will be required prior to final platting of each phase. Conceptual elevations have been provided and includes a mix of 1-story and 2-story houses. The materials include masonry, vinyl siding, and decorative elements. The clubhouse must be complementary to the houses and will be reviewed administratively with a building permit. The applicant is proposing a minimum livable floor area of 1,800 square feet on the main level, and the minimum must be noted on each final plat. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on Monday, February 26th, where 0 spoke in favor of the project and 10 spoke in opposition. Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of the rezoning and approval of the general development plan with 1 staff condition. Staff reviewed the rezoning request under the 9 review criteria included in the staff report and finds that the request is in accordance with the comprehensive plan. The proposed zoning and development of the site with the SF12 zoning is appropriate due to the surrounding properties also being developed as low-density residential. Approval of the application would set a precedent in the area for density design and street networks while allowing the property to develop in compliance with the comprehensive plan. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning. Staff also reviewed the general development plan under the review criteria included in the staff report and feels that the development is compatible with the area and will not have an adverse effect on the surrounding area based on both the sensitive design of the site and houses, as well as the additional investment that is likely to have a positive impact. Staff believes the requested modifications have been offset by enhancements, including amenities for the residents, green spaces throughout the development, sidewalks to connect pedestrians to all parts of the development, and sound urban design practices. Based on this review criteria, staff recommends approval of the general development plan with 1 staff condition, and I'm here for any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions from the council? Councilmember Fowler?
Yes, Your Honor, if we can go back to Adobe page 53. Ms. Wright did quote some numbers and I want to make sure. Can you zoom in on that box that says previous actions? So we can read it a little bit more clearly. Yeah, that's much better. You mentioned some dwelling units per acre, and I want to make sure we get this straight. So on May, the box that says May the 30th, 2007, that was the first one. You call that Gibson, and that was 634 dwelling units.
Yes.
Now, and what did you say was the dwelling units per acre?
So that one had a proposed 2.82 dwelling units per acre.
2.82, okay. And so that's like, all right, I guess let's go down to the next one and see that. So that one had 480 units.
Mm-hmm.
And what was its per acre?
That one was 2.13.
Okay, and then the
Proverbs Estates. Villas and
Proverbs Estates
Townhomes.
was how many?
3.44.
And then the applicant tonight is what?
1.73.
So that's the lowest we've seen. Now, but we also, you got the number 233, and this other one had like 600 and some odd. The acreage must be different because the dwelling units per acre are different.
Yes. The first one was a total acreage of 225 acres, and this one's 133.
Okay. So, but definitely on a density scale, this the developments proposed on these properties, the 1.73 units per acre is
The
Least
lowest.
dense, least dense we've seen so far.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanna make sure you were clear on that. That's all I have for staff this time.
Councilmember Lattiser.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because there seemed to be some confusion at the planning commission about the improvements of half of the roadway. Can you tell us why that's in there, whether that's a city requirement, and also what would future plans be for the other half of the roadway, assuming that the development's gonna drive on both sides?
Yeah, I would defer to Tom.
Sure, so our code requires half road improvements along this subdivision as a minimum. Unless there's like a safety concern, that's why we have full street improvements for a certain distance. As far as developing, what doesn't get built with this development would be when the adjacent property gets developed.
Have we required full street improvements for developments of this size normally, or is that just something that doesn't happen often?
Not that I can recall, not for the full length, like I said, to take out maybe a vertical site distance problem like we have in this situation for site safety, but for full length, full width, not that I can recall unless Mike knows something.
Not that I can recall for a subdivision to put it in. Normally, the code says we could do half road improvements for the full length of the property, or in certain circumstances, we can do full road improvements for half the length of the property, which then tends to lead to that real choppy nature of the road, as we've
Right.
seen, especially along Major Road, where that took a while to get finished. And so what the developer and city staff have agreed on is the half road improvements, except for that 750 some odd feet section on the west side of Wyatt adjacent to this property is going to be a full road improvement because of the site safety issues and the topography of the road.
So if we wanted to continue with full road improvements, that would be something like Major Wyatt, where eventually that'd be on the city, if there's not another project in the future.
If there's not another
Yeah.
project in the future, potentially, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Stay on this way. Yeah, we'll come back to you this side.
I think I have two questions, but I'm not sure that's on page 13 or 1 or whatever, where you had the yellow or the red lines, and then you had the property, and you mentioned where the houses that are to the north of it are, between Cook Road and Litchford Road. You said 700 feet. Where does that, what does that do to those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties? How much of that is full improvement, or is there any of it? You said 700
road.
feet of full improvement.
I'll go back to that one.
I'm sorry, it's after page 12 of 12, and I don't have the number popping up on me. But I think you've got it right there. How many of those houses to the north would have full road improvement, or homes?
2.5.
2.5?
Yeah, the
Okay.
750 measurement, I think is that the number?
It's 700 from this
700
point.
feet, so it would be two then, approximately two of those houses. The first two in from Cook, the intersection of Cook and
I didn't have the
Wyatt.
700 feet.
the full road improvements would be in front of those first two houses.
There's another question I think I've asked before, and I think it's already been answered, but we live on the north side of town, close to the Duncan Road west toward Woods Chapel Road. That road has no curb and gutter. It's full width, and it's very nice, and it's heavily traveled. Is there any chance that some alteration of the code or the plans could be done to allow that type of structure, so we don't have curb and gutter, because it is an agricultural, what do I want to say, a different type of environment than in the middle of town?
Our development requirements are based upon the city code and also our development standards and specifications, and the future Wyatt Road classification is for a residential collector, which does require the curb, gutter, and sidewalk. And because of the comprehensive plan designation, where that showed a 8-foot trail, bike trail through this property that comes from, that's along Major Road, and also a continuation of the Adamsbury Parkway Trail, that 8-foot trail would be, or sidewalk multi-use trail would be on the south side of the Wyatt Road, and then also on Litchford. Staff did not recommend that, didn't consider such a request. I don't know to what degree we can, council can make that suggestion, but
One more
typically we
comment,
would.
not being an engineer of any kind, it looks good to me to have it that way, without the curb and gutter, have the road wider, do a mimic of that portion of Duncan Road that I imagined. I don't know how that could be incorporated, or if it could be.
I would, if there's a more, to the point answer than my kind of description that Tom could offer, but we make developers build to our standards and specs when they do road improvements.
It would be difficult to include the trail and the sidewalk without curb and gutter, and also for stormwater management. That way we can collect it in inlets and put it in pipes and run it through detention, so we can manage stormwater better with curb and gutter.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Culpepper.
I'm good right now, thank you.
Anyone else? We'll go back to Councilmember Fowler before we.
Yes, Your Honor. Before, I had a discussion with Councilmember Culpepper, Administrator Cates, and Director Mike Mallon. If we could have a view of the roads in that area from Adams Dairy Parkway, Wyatt clear to the east, is there a way we could do that to make sure that we're clear on some of these points? Because we just talked about quite a few road improvements there, and I want to make sure throughout the phasing of this project I understand.
Okay, so this is a map, Adams Dairy Parkway, so I don't know if it's better to turn off the aerial or not. I turn it off.
Or the blue shading.
So Adams Dairy Parkway is over here on the left. This is Cook Road. Wyatt Road runs horizontally across the screen. Litchford Road is right here.
Okay.
And so this is where the property sits. In relation to that,
So just show the portion that you've already said, the southern half of what section is gonna be improved of Wyatt, and that's from basically where Cook is over to Litchford.
right. So approximately,
Or is that
so the first 700 feet from the western property boundary
right?
over, so about right there, will be full road improvements.
On the south side?
No, full road
Oh,
improvements would
okay,
be
both sides? all
both
right.
sides of the road. And then from this point here, and it's gonna draw another line, so it's gonna go from here to there, is gonna be, that additional 570 feet will be half road improvements.
Right,
And then half road improvements will continue down Litchford Road,
right.
down to there.
And I think that's what you have been communicating. I also want to say that you're, within this plan, already committed to is 90, the maximum they can go to is 90 lots without building another road, in which, can you show us where that could potentially go?
Yes, so based upon fire department requirements that limit 30 homes to essentially a cul-de-sac or one point of access, the proposed phasing plan comes, oh, sorry, okay, I gotta zoom out here. That's in here, right? The proposed phasing plan. So this is the proposed phasing plan for the project, and the developer could probably explain a little bit, ooh, what, there we go. Sorry about that. So the proposed phasing plan has 29 lots coming off of Wyatt Road here, which would then trigger the need for those Wyatt Road improvements. Phase 2 has the entrance off of Litchford Road, which would then trigger the Litchford Road improvements. Then phase 3 is goes from north to south across the stream buffer area and then up along the north and west corner of the site. So between those three, you have one access of 30 lots, another point of access gets them another 30 lots, and then essentially the third phase would be a continuation of one cul-de-sac, and so they would be limited to 90 lots essentially until they could secure an access point either out to Shrout Road.
From that point where your cursor's at right there?
From this point in phase 3, that's the next phase.
Go to
right
Shrout Road or north to Wyatt,
Right.
something like that?
They could either go to Shrout Road through what used to be the Proverbs Estate project, or depending on the timing of adjacent developments, so looking on this bigger map, so this property here was the Proverbs Estates project. This road here is a easement access road for the city to access a sewer lift station in the area. So approximately the third phase could come out here and out to Shrout Road, or an access point could go north across the Chapman
Right.
property if that were to be proposed to be developed at some time to get them that second, essentially that second point of access, but it'd really be the third point of access.
Great. I think you've done a great job of explaining what the project has and what the commitments are at the moment, correct? I also want to talk, and maybe this is to my colleagues, staff, maybe the developer. It's not something I'm going to ask an answer for immediately, but I think throughout the night I would like to know. And that is, a lot of the citizens may not know that Wyatt from 7 Highway to Adams Dairy, it's going to be improved over the next couple of years for like $5 million, but that's only to Adams Dairy, okay? The city has put in millions of dollars into Adams Dairy Parkway. We're going to be putting in more millions into Wyatt. We put in millions of dollars to get the sewers in, okay? So we've got a heck of an investment to make that land close to this vicinity developable. And where the concern comes in is you get much more than 90 or 150 homes down there. I'm very much concerned with Wyatt. And so I want to talk about phasing of this project. And the most likely that I would be talking about now is doing the first 5 phases, which would limit it at 146 homes. And I'm putting this on city just as well as anybody else, but that there be no further development beyond the 146 until Wyatt is improved from Adams Dairy Parkway to Litchford, both sides of the road. Okay, that's not saying where the money's coming from today. It's not saying about the city. It's not saying there can't be other development in the area. But I think that we do have to limit the pace of residential properties in that area to getting that road improved somehow or another. Okay, Administrator Cates, and that kind of the understanding you had when we discussed this?
Yes, and my understanding is that you're gonna make an amendment, or a condition.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's out there, and if there's any questions about that throughout the night, then please let us know too, so.
Yeah, absolutely. We can incorporate that in as a condition of approval when we get to that point. But I think bringing it up, Councilmember, also will let the developer address their ability
Right.
to comply with that or
Sure, but
to provide their input too.
Technically, it's not a requirement on the developer, however, it could impact the developer's project,
Yes.
right? It's a requirement on the city of Blue Springs and ultimately how development paces out there. So it could come back to developers as well.
It could.
Okay.
Any other questions from council to staff? If not, thank you, staff. The developer, come forward. Is the developer present?
Yes, sir.
Okay, were you sworn in when everybody took the oath?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we just need to put your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Justin Larkin, 808 Southeast Major, it's Blue Springs, Missouri, 64014.
You've heard some of the comments being made. I don't know if you want to address those. or just
Two
stand for
things.
questions.
Two things that I did write down just from staff presentation. Just on the houses themselves, 3-car garages, no vinyl sidings. Those weren't really prerequisites to any of the applications we had to submit, but it'll follow the building code that we've used in Hoot Owl Ridge and Hoot Owl Acres. So again, 3-car garages, stucco on front, stone on front, so no vinyl siding. So just to make that point clear. And then, yeah, like I said, I'm more than happy to take any questions, concerns, discussions about, again, the phasing. So I'll kind of open it up to you guys.
I think Councilmember Fowler, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Okay, I'll do that. You heard about the phasing. I realize that could impact the pace of your development. I don't know what you're looking at, but I do think it's a priority for our citizens not to have that amount of density beyond 146 homes without that road being improved, and that can come from a number of different sources. Any comments to that?
Yes, I will say that, again, just the 90 lots alone is probably a 6 to 8 year process.
Right.
I would like to probably discuss that with my head engineer, but I think that's something we might be open to, because honestly, 6 to 8 years is a long time. But I would also like to discuss, the access to Shroud, and the fact that through traffic studies, I think we've kind of see that there wasn't a large impact on the roads themselves. And so for 90 homes, and then the 4th phase, if it were to go through Shroud, how that would look. Because again, having Shroud improved, in parts and having Wyatt improved, I think would, you know, wouldn't solve the problem of Wyatt along Chapman, but, or where Chapman Farm is, but I think it should be taken into consideration.
I guess Shrout Road, I can visualize a road going out to Shrout and intersecting with Shrout, but Shrout is a county road. Are you saying that your project would improve that? How many feet along Shrout Road?
Well, again, that would be a question for, I think, I don't know if Mike, you'd be able to answer that. But also, is Shrout gonna be improved if Chapman gets developed?
Yeah. So, Shrout Road, the intersection, if they were to connect through over to the west through this property in this location, they would be responsible for constructing a city street section from their property, public right-of-way city street, across this land, and then doing road improvements for the section of Shrout Road that is adjacent to their property. Shrout Road north of here is fully within the city limits. So from this property north is all the way up to the city limits within the city of Blue Springs. And so typically what would happen is if this property here to the south, or that I'm circling here at the southeast corner of Wyatt and Adamsbury Parkway, were to develop, it would be that developer's responsibility or that development's responsibility to do the half road improvements for their project both on Litchford and on Wyatt. And then if the property to the north ever developed, then they would finish the half road improvement on the north side. It's the typical way of doing things, just the way our city code typically works.
Agreed. But I guess that also shows that with new development, then some of those costs can be offset by other means, but there would be a limit on this project, as there would be a limit on other projects. They would all have to work together to make sure that Wyatt was improved before that area became inundated with more traffic. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does make sense.
All right.
Councilwoman Levacy, you have something?
Yeah, I had a couple of things. You mentioned the traffic study. Can you explain from your standpoint what you felt like the traffic study talked about, the impact, and why you think it's not big?
Could I defer that to my engineer?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So then let me ask you this question then too. So the concern we have from the residents in the area is the density.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about why SF12 was the route you went instead of maybe an RE residential estates? What was kind of the mindset in your proposal?
Simply because of full road improvements due to the line of sight issue, costs incurred that are going to be pretty severe or pretty large for the bridge that has to be built over the creek. The loss of land because of the creek buffer that, again, we're okay with keeping that vegetation as is, but adding, you know, a nice walking trail. There's just a lot of land that's being lost for some of these things. I'm trying my best to keep this project, you know, as close to what was said at the Proverbs meeting when the citizens said they want something like Ridge. And so that's what we've tried to do. You know, we've reduced the amount of homes as much as we possibly can. You know, this is NID property, so again, this is not easy land to develop. So again, taking all that stuff into consideration, you know, we decided in talking with staff, you know, some of the amenities, adding the pool, the clubhouse. We're just trying to make this thing fit the surrounding area as best we can.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody down here?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm, because I know it was not in writing, but it was, you apparently over the phone confirmed the square footage on the main level is 1,800 square foot on main level.
Yes, ma'am. Same as Willow Tree and same as Hoot Owl Ridge.
All right, I just wanted to confirm.
2,200, I believe, second story, so, or story.
Any other question, Ms. Logan, from the councils? Yep, we got one more?
Yes, Your Honor. I guess, yeah, the 3-car garage, 1,800 square feet.
Mhm.
And then I think this is part of our large lot requirements, which you're proposing a large lot, but with the exception of cul-de-sacs, the frontage on the homes, the lots, is gonna be 100 feet minimum. Is that, and maybe staff needs to
Yeah,
confirm
again,
that,
that-
but I believe that's the case. Not including
That's-
cul-de-sacs, but
That's the requirement on cul-de-sacs. It goes down to 80 feet, but there are modifications being requested with this plan
okay.
for some of the properties.
All right. How many lots would be less than, that
Yeah.
would be
40. out of 231.
Okay, okay. So that makes it a little bit less than Hoot Owl, it sounds like, Hoot Owl Ridge. I mean, because most of those you did keep the 100-foot frontage, right? Okay.
Except for the ones we had to come back and ask for adjustments on.
There were reductions in the
Yeah.
front setback or the frontage width for, I think 15 or 10 to 15 lots in Hoot Owl Ridge. So about a quarter of that development requested that same thing for some cul-de-sac lots or lots that were on a curved street. So roughly about a quarter of the lots in Hoot Owl Ridge had that modification as well. And with the 40 being proposed here, that's roughly a fifth of the lots.
Okay. All right, that helps me, thank you.
If I may, where, the majority of those are they about half and half as far as the 90 versus, are most of those in the second, almost the second phase 5 and over?
I could have Adair point to some of the ones that we know of.
Yeah, most of them are in the southern portion of the
Okay,
property.
that's what I wanted to know.
The curved streets down here kind
Right,
of
thank you.
create a difficulty.
More council questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We're gonna go to the public. Anyone in the audience like to speak in support of?
Did you want to do the
Pardon?
traffic study real quick?
I can't hear you. Get up here by the microphone.
Sorry, did you want to have an answer to the traffic study for Councilman?
Have the
Busek?
engineer come up.
You good?
That's all right.
They're
I
good.
got it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone like to speak in support of? Support of? Opposition to? Okay, I have several, and I will call your name. Don't come up and trust I call you. Again, I'm gonna repeat. Got a lot of these here. If someone makes your point, then you don't need to repeat that point because these will go in the record. Okay? Now I'm gonna ask you if you've been sworn in when you come up. When I call your name, and you give us your name and your address. First one is Becky Dowell Aholt.
Hello.
Were you sworn in?
Yes, I've been sworn
Okay.
in, thank
Just
you.
give us your name and your address.
My name is Becky Dowell Aholt, and I live at 4309 Southeast Willow Tree Court, Blue Springs. And so I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I live in Willow Tree, which is south of the proposed development. And as you probably know, Willow Tree is zoned estate lot. Every home in there, and there are about 75 homes, are on a minimum of 1 acre. Most of them are on more than 1 acre, and minimum of the 1,800 square feet, and a specification of no home may be rented. And I've been studying. I love living in Blue Springs. I've been studying the development plan for housing, and there's a diverse plan, which is great. And I think that we've done well meeting that diverse plan, with the exception of no added homes that are estate lot or the RE rural. And I think we're falling behind in that because Lee Summit, Johnson County, Oak Grove, Grain Valley all offer this, and there's a huge market for it. Willow Tree sells almost before it goes on market. And so, I look, every business plan has a strategy, and that's financial, and it's also to try to please the customer or the people impacted by the business plan. And so I keep thinking that we really possibly have a win-win here tonight with that, both financial and customer satisfaction. And that would be that we rezone this area not to an SF-12, but to either an estate lot or the RE, or have sections of both within that area. I think, and thank you, Ron, I think that it should be specified that only 35 to 70 homes, again, Willow Tree has 75, but that we specify only 35 to 70 homes in this area, the minimum of the 1,800 square feet, no rental. That we, in doing this, we will please the population surrounding us. We will maintain that rural community feeling, and we will also, Justin Larkin has purchased from Blue Springs. It will relieve the debt for Blue Springs. It will relieve this dispute over the road conditions. And no one mentioned Cook Road, but Cook Road is going to be heavily traveled. It already is as a cut through. People take Cook, they cut through on all through Willow Tree. They're driving very fast, so that's another road to add. So if we depleted the number of homes in that area, we would not have to provide any more than maybe maintenance to the roads that are already existing and not have to go through all of this.
Good, time's up.
Okay. And then the drainage. So I thank you for the opportunity.
All right. You are a resident of Blue Springs?
Yes.
In Willowbrook?
Your Honor,
Who? Yes.
I just want to make a statement. We cannot regulate rental. We cannot say that you can't have a rental home in your subdivision. The Federal Housing Act will not allow that. That's a federal law, just so you're aware.
Can the HOA's covenants cover that? And maybe that's what's going on in Willow Tree, I don't know, that's a question.
Our attorney?
Typically, yes, that would be covered by the HOA.
Okay.
Okay.
So Willow Tree may have it, it may be in their HOA agreements,
But we have it in our HOA covenants, and we were told it didn't matter, the federal. So.
Okay, next I have Karen Evans. Karen? You'll have 3 minutes, and you are a resident of Blue
I am
Springs?
not Blue Springs resident. My address is 29614 East Harris Potts Road.
Pull that microphone down so we can hear you.
Okay, how's that? Better?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have done some research, and I would like to read so I don't misquote anything from the city's paperwork. So the comprehensive plan section 404.060 states that a residential estate district would prevent premature urban intensity development on lands not yet well served by infrastructure. And as Mr. Fowler pointed out, this particular area is not yet well served by infrastructure. The traffic study talked about delays, time delays only, but did not address any safety concerns, and I would have major safety concerns. In fact, if one wanted to walk or bike on those roads, maybe some adults could do so, but I certainly wouldn't want any children to travel on the roads the way they are. It appears to me that the rezoning the area into an RE district would be much more in line with the city's goals, because the RE designation is intended to protect estate lot residential developments from encroachment by higher density developments. And furthermore, the RE designation is appropriate for application in areas of the city that continue to be used for farming. And definitely that area out there is used for farming. Instead, the city staff recommends making concessions to the developer by reducing the 100-foot road frontage requirements on 40 of the planned lots. I understand that they are in cul-de-sacs, but I don't understand why the number of lots in the cul-de-sac cannot be reduced. I would say that it would be more within the zoning of the PR even to have a lot frontage of 150 feet, which is also possible in that zoning. The 4 lots with a larger frontage and 1 lot with over an acre of land don't make up for the reduction in size of 40 lots. We also learned that half road developments are planned, and I am very concerned about that, and this has been addressed by the city council. But I feel like if the developer is required to make half-road improvements, it seems a little bit like building a bridge across a river, and you stop your bridge in the middle of the river. No matter how well that half bridge is built, it is basically worthless. And this is definitely against the comprehensive development plan, because the lack of improvement would result in circumstances contrary to the public health, safety, and general welfare. I don't want to repeat any of the other points, and so I would like to urge you to reevaluate the decision made by the Planning Committee. Thank you.
All right. David Kuntz. You on the walker there, David?
Okay. My name's David Knust. I live at 8312 Litchford Road. It's the property that you're all gonna surround here.
I noticed you had a Green Valley, so you're in the city limits. I noticed you got a Green Valley address.
Yes, sir. That's
You're
correct.
actually in county?
Yeah,
Are
you
you in
have
the
speak-
county?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And my biggest point that I think has been made is that this is, we have, most lots there are over 3 acres. I think the last, what'd I say? Anyway, most of them average out to about 6.5 acres in the area. This doesn't come close to complying with how our neighborhood is. And therefore it just doesn't work. And also there's no address in here the wildlife and the downstream problems from flooding, because if you take 130 acres out of absorption of rainwater and you're putting it all down into that creek, they already have issues downstream of flooding from it. The other thing is, I don't see anything in any of the city planning where any of the retention ponds that the developer said that they would have for storm retention are engineered. I mean, we just can't dig a hole and expect it to. That's held ground there, which means it's highly erodible soil. And we would have some major problems with erosion in the area just from that alone. Even while he's building, we're gonna have terrible problems. I think we need to address that before we start this. Has he, got any comprehensive plan on how he's gonna address this erosion and storm retention ponds? Because that soil's not suitable for it right now. And anybody that has a septic system out there can attest to that we have to have very long and large laterals to absorb the problem with our septics right now. Thank you.
Okay. Adam Krentz? So you're in the county too? I see a Green Valley address.
Yes, that's correct. I'm down Litchford Road, 30404 East Litchford Road, just down by the creek where all this flows to. But that's going to get addressed later tonight. I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention that the term large lot that they're using to describe this, it really shouldn't explain what it is for out there. The term large lot is being used to describe this proposed development, and it's misleading to everyone here tonight. It may be considered large in some places like in the city, but not out here where over 80% of the residents live on 2 to 10 acres. And really that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Tanya Parker?
Nope.
Were you sworn in as well?
I have been sworn in, thank you. My name is Tanya Parker. I reside at 9008 South Litchford Road. That's Green Valley, that is unincorporated Jackson County. I know that it's been spoken to just a little bit about the flooding that has occurred. And I have tried to submit this into record a couple times, but video has been difficult to submit. So what I wanted to do is just briefly show you what actually happens on Litchford Road. And this is at the lowest point of Litchford Road, which is about an 825-foot elevation compared to this development, which is, I think, is at 955 feet. This goes all the way across our property, Gordon Goodman's property, and down across the bridge. I just want everyone to be aware of this because I don't know that this has been presented before. This is what that area typically looks like. That bridge is about 4 foot high. So the water is extremely, extremely deep and does a great deal of damage. Beyond that, there's just a couple things I wanted to kind of touch on as far as the market itself. My husband and I have been in the real estate and lending markets since '99. A lot of this new development that's going on is new developers. They don't have the benefit of the past, of seeing what occurred from 2000 to 2006, when we did have a great deal of development. That was also predicated by an event that has never happened before. That was 9/11. Interest rates dropped. We had a great deal of investment going on, and then we had a housing bubble, which a lot of us here remember very well. We are in a situation that I feel parallels that. The period of boom and bust is very similar. We are also experiencing with increased frequency the same concerns from homeowners that I heard 20 years ago, which was when excessive adjustments to mortgage payments were occurring, when escrow shortages were adjusted based on the county increasing tax levies and tax assessments. I can't predict the future, but I am cautionary and conservative, and if history repeats itself, between 2027 and 2029, regardless of median political rhetoric, we at least need to consider the possibility of a potential housing recession and not just have unmanaged development, especially in an isolated area where we need to consider how it would be incorporated into its surroundings. The dominoes fell in 2008. It was too late. We had talked many times that there was no bubble. That's the rhetoric now as well. I don't know if that's the case, but supply and demand are fickle, and we've had a lot of developments green-lighted over the last few years that have not come to fruition yet to make sure that the economy is in balance. So all I ask is that we please proceed with thoughtful consideration as to the best use of this land and the future development of Blue Springs.
Just in time.
Thank you very much.
Now, I do have a question for you. That bridge, that's a county bridge, isn't it?
Huh?
The bridge you talked about that's flooded, isn't that in the county?
That's our bridge that was flooding.
Your bridge.
That was our bridge specifically. We get trapped on our property whenever that happens, so I don't know what truly happens beyond that.
All right.
Thank you.
Jay Ryan. Also, Green Valley.
Yes, properties out in the same area. Jay Ryan, 28909 East Major Road. So your 2014 comprehensive plan stated that 80 to 85% of residents can find most daily services within 2 miles. Not out here. If they're going to Blue Springs, it's 3.1 miles away to the closest gas station, and 4.3 miles to Price Chopper, and 4.5 miles to a Hy-Vee. Also in 2014, you guys stated that 22,000 people left Blue Springs to go to work. How many more people are we going to add? You're 7.6 miles away to I-70, or 470, sorry, and 3.9 miles to I-70 up Adams Dairy. Also, you talk about the link connection. There's no link connection. The closest sidewalk that's been developed is over a mile away, so I don't know how you're going to get there. You talk about it needing to be a quarter mile away, 5-minute bike ride, 10-minute walk. You don't meet any of that. And how does this fit the image that you guys put out in the 2014 comprehensive plan? You talk about places connecting to social centers, adding diversity to the city. This doesn't add any diversity to our city. You talk about recreational amenities. It doesn't add any of those. He talked about a clubhouse. That's not ordinary. Everybody's doing that now. We talked about the highways. Investment, how is this going to benefit Blue Springs? You're in Lee Summit School District, so most people are going to drive to Lee Summit for their schools. They'll go to dinner at Lee Summit because their kids are going to be out there. So I don't understand how this is going to benefit Blue Springs. You've talked about in your goals outlined in the comprehensive plan to strengthen the individual neighborhood identities. This doesn't strengthen anything out there that they've talked about being 2, 5, 10-acre lots. The property you've talked about that would have to be developed is a farm right now, so I don't know how you're going to develop that to get to Shrout Road. And it just doesn't fit, and I would strongly encourage you to think about how it doesn't fit and what would be beneficial would be less homes with more acreage. And we already talked about my last question, so thank you.
Okay. Okay, so now I'm getting into some that you wrote it out instead of being typed out. So if I mess your name up, you let me know and you correct me. Well, I can't make that. Is it a AJ Ali or something? Okay.
My name is AJ Ali. My address is 29910 East Harris Potts. I'm 3 parcels away from the development itself. I live there, been living there for a very long time. I've been a resident of that area for almost 20 years. I'm not sure if anybody's taken a trip down Litchford or Wyatt when all these developments were happening. Right now, if there was a big vehicle, you'd have to stop to let that vehicle either pass by you because the road is not wide enough to do it. As council member said earlier, the development is there and we understand that part of it, but there's no infrastructure that's gonna get you there or back in a safe manner. And I don't feel like it's this, the city wants to put dollars and cents above somebody else's safety. So if you go down Litchford, it's full of potholes. So if you miss one, you're gonna catch another one. And I'm pretty sure anybody in this room that's driven down that road could verify that. When it snowed last year, when we had this one snow, there was a 1-lane road. I was scared to death trying to go over the hill so I won't have a front-end collision. That is in Blue Springs. The roads weren't plowed. How do you expect more people to go down those roads when the roads are not maintained with the people that are already there? What difference does it make? I understand they're improving that corner, but how do you get to those corners? You have to go through those side streets, those streets that the infrastructure's not there to accommodate this. Now, on top of that, schools. You're gonna go to Lee Summit. Has anybody went to Mason Elementary and tried to get through traffic? It's a 2-lane road. It's backed up. Well, when it gets more people, there are gonna be more cars coming down that road. You can't get an ambulance or a fire truck or a police car through that traffic. They literally would have to go around. How do we propose that we're putting all this stuff in, which again, development's gonna happen. I like it, my neighbors don't like it, or whatever. That's not irrelevant. But you still have to have the infrastructure there to be able to facilitate it. Now, my wife was T-boned at Wyatt and Adams Dairy. Some guy was rushing through. How many wives and kids are gonna get hurt before you guys realize that, it's probably not the best fit right now. If there's a 4-lane or 2-lane road, a 4-lane total, or anything that's a little bit better than what you have, you can't get 2 semi-trucks through there right now. And you're expecting, 90 cars. I'm giving them 90 lots that are going to get developed first. 90 cars. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. 1 car per house. That's not. I got 4 or 5 at my house. It's not going to happen, guys. If somebody gets hurt, that's going to be on you guys because you're the one that's making the decision. We're here. We live there. We're telling you this is the problem, and whatever you guys decide, it's going to be on you. Thank you.
Tom, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
No, Tom.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
Not AJ. The street he's talking about, is that because we plow our streets in Blue Springs?
Yeah, what street were you talking about in particular?
I have pictures.
That you said it wasn't plowed, because I find that very difficult to
It was
believe.
1-lane road on Wyatt and Cook. 1 lane. I have pictures if you guys want to see them.
No, I wanna know where it is. Is it in the city limits of Blue Springs?
It is.
Because we do a pretty good job.
It shows that we plow Wyatt Road and Cook Road. Part of the Cook Road's in the county, but we have an agreement where we'll do certain things, so we do plow snow on Cook Road. Initially, we make a pass through there and we come back. We just do the best we can on these roads.
But where you're talking about is the county's responsibility?
No, sir. It's ours.
It's ours?
Yeah, Wyatt Road up to Cook Road and north on Cook Road to Moreland School Road is ours.
Okay, if that's the case, you let us know. We'll do a better job of that.
Myself and my neighbors, I'm pretty sure, because you have to go over the hill in order to go across. I was scared that I'm gonna get, front end collision because there's no way to know that if there's a car coming or not. Yeah.
Okay.
You had to go in the left hand.
Okay, we don't need to have a conversation on sidebars, okay? We'll not tolerate any sidebars.
Your Honor,
Yes.
didn't Lee Summit have some property for a school for future in that area?
They had for a long time. They purchased
Okay,
some, but they've
thank
never
you.
built.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Steve Lanier. You're also a Green Valley resident?
Yes, off of Harris Potts Road.
Did you take the oath? When we
Yes,
took
I
the
did.
oath? Did you take the oath?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
My name is Steve Lanier, and I've lived at 29705 East Harris Potts Road for the past 33 years. Now, speaking of schools, I thought that they weren't really being addressed, so as a retired teacher and administrator for the Lee Summit School District, I reached out. I've spoken to Dr. Steve Shelton, Assistant Superintendent in charge of operations for the Lee Summit School District, and he informed me, and I informed him of the proposed development. We spoke about the lack of appropriate roads and the current housing pressure that's already impacting Mason Elementary. He shared with me that Mason Elementary at the present is just under 90% capacity. So I asked, at what point does the district start worrying about capacity and look at solution-based options? He told me when the building reaches 85%. He shared no options for relieving the growth. I later met with the principal of Mason Elementary on Colburn Road, and she shared with me the Lee Summit School District's demographers' growth projections from their board meeting last week, and it showed the huge growth that is and will be impacting the Mason attendance area. His report highlights over the next 5 years 900 housing units, not to mention the 231 proposed here, will all impact Mason, Bernard Campbell Middle School, and Lee Summit High School. These developments will surely impact the intersections that we've been talking about. The safety of current and potential residents is really not being considered. At the present time, the road maintenance and repairs have left the culvert underneath Harris Potts Road clogged and inoperational for years. Snow removal and grass cutting along the sides of Litchford is an extremely poor track record. It's not uncommon for the grass on either side of the road to reach 4 to 5 feet high, and large amounts of trash to be dumped along the side of Litchford Road. When Blue Springs does plow Wyatt Road east of Adams Dairy and turn north on Cook, it leaves this entire development out of the loop. Over the last 30 years, or 33 years, I've plowed that section of Wyatt, Litchford, and Harris Potts so my neighbors and I can safely get out. When I've called about potholes being repaired, or the grass being maintained, or the trash being picked up on Litchford Road, I've got a difficult time getting results because of a continuing dispute about jurisdiction. Is it Blue Springs? Is it Jackson County? It's just a mess. This jurisdiction is the same issue with dealing with Jackson County Police, or the sheriff, or the Blue Springs Police. And lastly, I'd like to address the light and the sound pollution, which are not being addressed at all, and will propose a permanent change to this area. From my house, I can hear the announcer at the Blue Springs football games, which is about 4 miles away. I can also hear the bands at Colonial Gardens, which is about 1.5 miles away. And on a clear night, I can see constellations all over the place above my home. I fear this will be negatively changed as light and sound pollution is going to be pushed into this area. I hope that you will consider these points as you literally hold our futures in your hands. I hope your decisions will be based on keeping quality, long-lasting communities for the current and future residents of Blue Springs. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Jessica Ryan.
Everything's already been said.
Right, thank you. Shirley Houston. Shirley Houston. Green Valley.
It's Houghton, but that's okay. I just want to say, make sure you all understand about Litchford Road. We've done a lot of talking about it, but Litchford winds and winds and winds with no intersecting roads until it gets to Coburn Road, almost to Bugder-Tarsney. No traffic is going to go there except maybe on Friday night when they're headed to the lake, or going east for some reason to Sedalia. But it is a long, windy road that doesn't go anywhere until it gets to Coburn Road, almost to Buckner-Tarsney. Almost all the traffic from this development will use Wyatt Road. Thank you.
Okay. Steve Smith. Steve Smith. You were sworn in?
Yeah.
Okay.
My name's Steve Smith. I live 29509 East Harris Potts Road, Grain Valley. I've been there. Next week will be 30 years, and I think there's several people in the room that's been there longer than me, and we all have nice sized lots and all that, and that's all been talked about. But the thing I want to point out is I've been here for all the proposals that was mentioned earlier, and I know 2 or 3 of you guys have been, and I don't feel like anything's been addressed except the number of homes that went down, and they finagled it around to make it work in that area, and the infrastructure hasn't been addressed. They've said that they've done studies on the streets and you know, the flooding and all that. I can second the lady that had the pictures. I've got endless pictures of flooding. I got them on my phone. There's no way to show, but I've seen the bridge down Litchford flood time and time again, and in front of our house, the flooding is a normal occurrence. And if the road floods down on Litchford, there's only one way out. Even if people did want to go out to Colburn, they're only going to go that way. And the other stuff's pretty much been discussed, but I would like for you guys to consider something that fits more in the area. I mean, there's not a person in here except for the developer that wants this. And it's basically, it's been overlooked and nobody's really said anything about it, but it's because of the NID property, and the city wants to unload it, and the developer has to do all these lots. If I'm not mistaken, the developer discussed with one of my neighbors when the Proverbs deal was going on, and he said he would love to build bigger lots in that area, but that the city didn't want him to because of the NID stuff, and that they needed the money for the NID program. So I would like for you guys to consider, it's not changed since all the other proposals have been made, and I think you're putting the cart before the horse. I mean, a lot of stuff needs done before we bring that kind of development out there. And you're saying that there are going to be 90 homes there until they can get another access. Well, has something been proposed with Chapman? I mean, he's been here at all the other meetings, and to the best of our knowledge, he has no desire to sell, and unless he's, you know, considering that. And the Proverb property, I mean, and the only other way that there's going to be another outlet is on the convenient access to the waste station that the city owns, and you're talking about putting a road out there to Shrout Road. Well, Shrout Road's no better than the roads that we all live on, and I just don't see how this is going to happen.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Martin Underwood. Last of the Green Valley.
Hi, Mayor, how are you? My name is Martin
Were you
Underwood.
sworn in when we?
Yes, sir, I sure was. I live at 29110 East Wyatt Road, Green Valley 64029, and all these properties on the north side from Cook to Litchford, including the one right there in the center, the city was gracious enough to let us stay in the county when the Gibson project fell. Mr. Gibson had that all annexed into the city, and when you come up here and you say, oh, you're in the city, well, we're in the county, Mayor, but we go to the city all the time, and we appreciate you letting us stay in the county. Now, if you move that map down right there just a little bit, I have about 425 feet of frontage along this project. It's right in my front yard. I'm not against development. If you want to make something like Willow Tree, estate lots, nice homes, I'm in. My neighbors would be in. But when you start going, well, it's supposed to be 100 foot wide, but we're going to go down to 80 foot wide. Well, we're going to do 40 of those that we're going to lower to 80. Well, now you got smaller things going on. Can you imagine? I want you to imagine a couple hundred or 250 cement trucks going down Wyatt Road and 50 asphalt trucks, and you're only going to service the south side of the road. You're going to leave that north side over on my side. You know, them trucks that go down the road and then they got to come back the road. You've had some very intelligent questions, and I appreciate it, both of you. But these people are not against development. Just put something that's, I don't have a thing wrong with Mr. Larkin. He's got a nice subdivision, but I live out on 10 acres. You think I moved out on 10 acres to have 230 homes across the street? We ain't lost our mind, have we? I mean, seriously. We appreciate the city. We go in there all the time. But every time I come up here and you say, "Ah, do you live in the city?" Well, no, I don't live in the city, because the city was gracious enough to let 6 of our residents to stay in the county. And we appreciate that. As far as most everybody has touched on the traffic, I understand, but I just want you to imagine all the concrete trucks, asphalt trucks going down there, and we're not gonna do nothing to that road until that 90 homes are built. I guarantee you that. So I'm gonna suffer going out my driveway with competing with construction equipment. Seriously, people. We appreciate you, council. You've made some very intelligent decisions on Gibson and the Proverbs. And I appreciate that.
You bet. Okay, the last one, and I don't know how this affects the property. Jade Rodell Tipton, Independence.
I'm the engineer on the project. That should be
Say
in
it.
favor of. I'm the engineer on the project. I should be speaking in favor of.
Okay, you're the engineer on the project, so you're not here in opposition to?
No. No.
Okay. Okay, any council members, anything for the record before I close this public hearing?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I guess, if we could have the developer up here one more time to have a question.
Okay, developer, come up. We got a question for you before we close this public hearing.
Sir. There was discussion, may or may not have been about you, I don't know, but I'm gonna, just any developer in this situation. You've heard our residents out here talk about wanting, residential estate instead of large lot. Can you address that from your perspective? Can you do that? Can you build residential estate?
So the issue with that is, what I've heard is we want gas stations, grocery stores, amenities, but we don't want homes. And so again, what we've tried to do is find a happy medium where there's enough homes in there that we're not, we're gonna create tax revenue for the city, but we're also gonna provide the means to provide down the road for some of these things. Eventually, this property will be developed. Just like they have, I've been through all the city council meetings for the other proposals. And like I said, we've worked on this thing for 18 months, working between ourselves and my engineers and the city, trying to find something that fits, that's actually doable. Because you can't have large estate lots and do full road improvements. You just can't. We're gonna have, and we've done a lot of engineering on our detention ponds to try and deal with the water. We're not just kicking water downstream to, flood people's houses. That's not how we've done this, and that's not the process. And I think Mike could attest to the fact that we've had this meeting pushed back twice because we have been asked to go above and beyond in terms of some of the reports and some of the studies we've been asked to do. So again, I know that they say they're not against development, but in development, it has to make sense. Not only on paper, but in terms of the cost as well. Without homes, there's no tax revenue to improve these roads down. It's just not possible. You can't have it both ways. And so again, what we've done is we've put together something that we think, we're being accommodative to what we've heard at previous meetings about what the homeowners have asked for. They asked in this, they asked for ridge. That's what was said. And so that's why we built this the way we did and used the lot sizes that we did, was because that's what we heard people ask for. So.
Anyone else before I close it?
Your Honor, I do want to bring up one more thing on a proposal that I will probably make, and it's just come up as we've been discussing, so obviously I haven't talked to colleagues or anything, but I wouldn't mind if the developer has something to say about it. I certainly want to give their input too. But what I hear is 40 lots, less than 100 feet. I'm not talking about those that are exempted because of cul-de-sacs, okay? So if that's in that 40, I'm not talking about those. But I am talking about if there is lots in here that are less than 100 feet, I will be at least, and I don't have any idea where the council's going with this or anything, but I'll be making a motion or proposal that those 40 get in compliance and be at least 100 feet. Honestly, if I think about taking out a lot or two here, because a lot of these are 4 foot, 3 foot, 15 foot, you take out a lot, I think if you lose 10 to 15 lots, that would be about as much as I can see that, by adding that requirement back in. So I will be making that motion a little bit later. Just want to make sure my colleagues heard about it as well. And if there's anything that my developer would like to say, I'd like to hear that feedback. I'm sure the maximum lots that could be lost would be 40 because, but honestly, I just don't think you're gonna have to lose that many lots to salvage the 40 lots that are less than 100 feet.
You guys doing some calculations over there?
A little bit, counting.
And I know it has to be, you have to factor in the cost. There's no doubt about that. Then you factor
While
in
you're
the cost.
calculating, can I ask a question that may require more calculation?
Sure.
So the same caveat as Councilmember Fowler here. I'm one of 7. I can't promise anything, whatever. But you're talking about the balance in the calculation here between cost and what's possible. So the city, for example, we took on the cost of improving Wyatt Road west to 7 Highway. If we were to do something like that in the future, again, no promises whatsoever, what would that affect your calculation? Would that be able to get to RE zoning then if you were removing the cost of the half road improvements, or is that negligible in the course of the overall project?
That'd be tough to say because honestly, this is, and I'll be truthful, this is a 10 to 15 year process. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight. Every phase you're looking at 3 to 4 years from start to finish. So that being said, that amount of time just to get to my 90, it's hard to say what's going to happen between now and then. And I know I've heard that Chapman doesn't plan on selling. Don't know him personally. But again, anything can happen. So, I mean, we're flexible. If we, we're 5 to 10 lots lost. I mean, if we have to rework some of those, I'm okay with that. Ultimately, those are all in 6, 7, and 8 phases anyways. So again, we're so far down the road that, I'm flexible with that.
Well, and I'll just add, because you said that a couple times, that this is going to take a long time. That's our concern as well, is if we approve a zoning today, and you're saying it's going to be 15 years before you develop this whole project. It's tough for us to make a decision on zoning today that you're saying is not going to be there for 15 years, because what will things look like in 15 years?
Well, we have to get through our first 90 first.
Sure.
So again,
that's a similar calculation we make is, what will things look like in the future?
We've got the Proverbs project that's been approved, but it hasn't been developed. So what happens there? It could happen anytime, and if it does, then again, we have our second or third point of access. So I can't say with certainty exactly how long it'll take, but I know, like I said, we're gonna get to our first 90, and unless we have another access point, nothing's gonna get developed anyways.
Sure.
So whether I develop it or somebody else comes in, they're gonna need that access point as well.
Okay. Any last comments? I'm gonna make a comment. We put the NID in based on developing that property. The city spent a lot of money putting that NID in, of which in a lot of cases, when they default on that, we're holding the bag. We made a lot of payments on the NID, and I'm sure our city administrator can talk about some of those costs that we've done, and we're still making payments on it because that has not been developed yet, right?
Mayor, can I ask a question? Do we know what the original NID accounted for in terms of rooftops for this property? Do we know what that number is?
Yes, when the NID was put into place, it assumed 400 units on this portion of the property. So the boundary of this property, the 133 acres, had approximately 400 units on it.
So we're almost half.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm trying.
Mike, I think you also had some other comments you wanted to make before we close the public hearing.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure to address any questions that council may have had from staff or some of the questions that were brought up by the residents. We've been, as with these large public hearings with lots of testimony, we take notes and kind of group them into different categories of what the concerns were. And so I just want to provide some information back to council and developer and those attending tonight. The lot sizes, large lot in our code is defined as a 12,000 square foot minimum lot up to an acre in size. The large lot does meet our definition of the code. The comprehensive plan designation on the property is for 1 to 5 dwelling units per acre. So if we were looking at 3 5-acre lots, we would actually be out of compliance with the comprehensive plan, as it would be too low of a density than what would be what has been approved in the comprehensive plan and the S2 area plan. I think Mr. Larkin addressed the stormwater detention and the detention ponds. The city code does require that those are engineered and signed off, sealed by an engineer when we get to the platting and the construction phase portion of the development. The preliminary drainage study has been reviewed, and Public Works is in agreement with that. There were some discussions about sidewalk and link connections. As I previously mentioned, there will be an 8-foot sidewalk built along the Wyatt Road frontage, the Litchford Road frontage, and that will eventually connect to the Adams Dairy Parkway Trail. And then in addition, there are probably a quarter to a half mile worth of trails, probably more, in and around the development project. The schools, the city does route all development applications to the school districts. We did not get any feedback from Lee Summit School District. I did have a meeting with the Lee Summit demographer earlier this year, let him know about this project, and he did not raise any concerns at that time. Flooding, the downstream flooding, if Ms. Bright could bring up, so there is the one creek that runs through kind of the middle of the property, that he has to build a bridge over, that little stream. That stream is not in a floodplain.
What one do you want it on?
Well, let's go to this one then. So there's a stream that runs kind of northwest to southeast through the property that they have to provide the stream buffer for. In the southwest corner of the property, this creek that runs here along this area does clip the very southern southwest tip of the property. This whole area is within the floodplain, the FEMA floodplain, including all the way down in and through here. And the photos that are included in your packet where the flooding has occurred with the ditch and the bridge over the ditch, that entire property, save for the house and where the house is located on it, all of that is within the floodplain. So there are flooding issues. They're not caused by this development. They are already there due to the natural topography of that creek and the floodplain that is already associated with that creek.
Okay.
Your Honor, I do have one quick question for staff. So we know Willow Tree, example of RE zoning. Can you give some examples in the city that would be of SF12?
Absolutely. Hoot Owl Ridge is SF12, which is directly south of Willow Tree, as is the Woodbine subdivision that is directly north of Willow Tree. Very similar project in size of lots and being surrounded by larger county properties.
Is SF12 a relatively new? Are there any older neighborhoods, Deer Run or Park Avenue, for example, that would be the equivalent, that would be similar to SF12, or those are all SF7?
And most everything else is SF7.
Most everything is SF7. There probably are a few that just aren't coming to my mind. The new ones that we just annexed that were developed in the county, Carrot Oaks and Highlands Ranch, those are estate lots.
Okay.
But the SF12 category hasn't been used very much since we adopted that building type and the large lot building type.
So most of those are just in the area that you mentioned?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I want to add one other comment to that, Your Honor. And when it comes to estate zoning, I know throughout the life of the Chapman projects, and Councilmember Culpepper, you on the Planning Commission during all this as well, we have tried to hold the line on all development to keep it as less dense as possible. We were able to get the Chapman Estates. Now, technically, I don't even know if that's the name of the subdivision. I don't know that it's zoned as an estate lots or not.
The estates at Chapman Farms?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are not.
Those are SF7.
Yeah, so they're not estates. We did have the Proverbs Estates, but that plan never developed, right? That was a estate right down in this vicinity, but the developer never followed through on that, right?
That's correct.
So it's been a goal to reduce density in all these developments, but I will tell you that throughout the Chapman history, we've had pressure to get smaller and smaller lots, and on the other side of the 7 Highway, we can see some of that going on, so, it's good to, I realize the residents want residential estate, but this is the next best thing to it, so.
Okay, seeing no more. Close this public hearing. Who would like to introduce bill number 5194?
I'll introduce it, Your Honor.
First reading of Bill 5194, an ordinance approving rezoning property AG Agriculture County to SF12 large lot single family for Hoot Owl Meadows.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Your Honor. I guess, relative to the rezoning, I want to mention 2 proposals that I've been talking about, and that is the phasing. We already know about where the project is phased. It's already documented. Where I'm talking about is from lot 146 and up, that they cannot issue any permits for houses beyond that until both sides of Wyatt are improved from Asbury Parkway to Litchford.
Whether that's developed by the
Well,
developer
it-
or the city, or whatever.
Or the city, and
Right.
if you think about some of the other land that could be developed down there, it could be that other developers may step into this as well. I'm just saying that before it gets too dense down there, we want the roads improved, because we've seen the opposite, where the city had to come back and improve the roads because it got so dense. So I don't know whether that is gonna be appropriate to do at this rezoning. If staff could let me know that. And then I think I would like to know, for my personal vote, I'd like to know what the council's gonna say to moving these other 40 lots to requiring the 100-foot, because I don't know if I would go forward with the rezoning if that would not pass as well. So I'll let staff kind of figure out the path forward.
Let me get a legal opinion on that. Is it appropriate for that to be made as we talk about the rezoning, the amendment to the rezoning, or the development plan?
I would presume development plan would be where that would be more appropriate, not so much the rezoning as to when permits are issued.
Although, like I say, before I do the vote on rezoning, I'd kind of like to know, so maybe if it's not a motion, can I have a council discussion and get feedback from the rest of the colleagues on that?
I don't know if they want to talk about that or not.
If anybody wants to, I'd be interested in hearing, because.
Well, I think that the applicant said that he was flexible on those things, so I would like to see that as a condition.
But in the development plan, not the rezoning.
Correct.
Yeah.
We agree with you there, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I would also be amenable to that concept based upon what you two both asked.
I would just ask, is the better path here, rather than trying to do a condition, is to continue this and allow some discussion with the developer to see if he would make changes to this, rather than trying to do this on the fly in a council meeting? That's the only thing I'd throw out there.
Certainly the zoning is the first step for getting it done, before we actually get into the development plan.
Yeah, but Your Honor, that's where I think having that knowledge before you do the rezoning can matter sometimes.
Well, some of the council members have nodded, so
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good enough for you.
Can I ask a question of our city attorney, please? Would it be possible that we do, and sometimes we do this, where we condition one application on the subsequent approval of another application? Could you condition approval of a rezoning based upon the approval of the general development plan? And that if the general development plan isn't approved, then that approval of the rezoning is rescinded?
It's possible. I don't have a definitive answer for you at this time. I'd have to think about that. If you've done that before.
We have done that before with,
forward with
for example, preliminary plats, where we will say we'll take a concept plan forward at the same time as a preliminary plat. The planning commission approves the preliminary plat at the meeting before city council comes and actually approves a rezoning or PD concept plan. And if those plans are not approved by the city council, then the planning commission's approval of that preliminary plat, which has already taken place, is rescinded or null and voided.
So a precedent has been set for doing it.
So that's just one option, or
Your Honor, is it appropriate to make motions now? Is it on the table?
Well,
Or
we're
we
trying to
just
figure
close
out
public?
what kind of motion do we need to make on the
Well,
rezoning.
I would make a motion to continue both items until at least the next meeting. I just don't know if now is the time to do that.
You certainly could.
Okay.
I mean, it sounds like there's a number of questions
Right. My
that
concern
council would
is-
want answered
we-
that I don't have
Yeah.
But we
definitive
will not
answers.
resume another public hearing on it. We would just take it
You've
up.
closed the public hearing. Yes,
Yeah,
that's
it's
correct.
been closed.
My concern is the same as Councilman Fowler's. There's a lot of questions, and it's difficult to vote on the rezoning without having some answers to those questions, so I think it's maybe appropriate to
Okay, so you
continue
want to
these
make a
items.
motion to be continued to the next council meeting?
I would make that motion.
Okay,
I'll
is there a
second it.
It's, okay.
I'm gonna roll call it.
Councilmember Levesey?
Aye.
Fowler?
Aye.
Erickson?
Aye.
Edmondson?
Aye.
Culpepper?
Aye.
Kaler?
Aye.
Mayor Ross?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
Okay, so, this will be continued to the next council meeting. Items 4, 5, and 6, all relating to the Hoot Owl Meadows rezoning as well as the other development plan and all that. Okay, we'll move down to item 7, staff presentation on relating to backyard chicken.
Yep.
Oh, well, why don't we wait just a second? For those that don't wanna wait and talk, listen about chicken, we'll let you leave. Just here for Hoot Owl.
You hungry?
Jerry, sit down. No, Jerry.
Okay, we're gonna let you go ahead and leave so we can resume our meeting. Those that wanna leave.
Yeah.
Okay, staff presentation.
Apologize one moment while I bring it up and get through all of the other stuff. Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. This evening's presentation is regards to the subject of backyard chickens at the direction of City Council. Over the last many months, staff was directed to bring forward an ordinance for council consideration regarding backyard chickens. As you're aware, backyard chickens have been discussed and reviewed numerous times since 1999 in the city. A little brief timeline that shows the many different times that this has been brought up. Most recently, the direction provided at the January 16th public meeting where council directed staff to bring forward city code amendments that would allow for some form of backyard chickens in the city. As a result, staff has completed its research. We've reached out to a number of other communities that both allow backyard chickens and other poultry or birds, and have an ordinance ready to present to you this evening. Those city code amendments are actually amendments to 3 different sections of the city code. The first is a new section to be numbered 215.127, entitled The Regulation of Backyard Chickens. So this would be an addition to the code. The second code section is changed to 215.030, the number of animals. And that is an amendment to that section, and an amendment to 215.125, the livestock and farm animal section. So I will run through these regulations. Please stop me if you have any questions, or we can have questions at the end. And as the email that was forwarded to all of you by our city administrator, following the presentation and questions, staff will have a Word document version of an ordinance up and able to make changes to the proposed code amendments to reflect the discussion of City Council and any amendments being proposed by a member of council. So that's kind of the process for this evening. Cheryl or Christine, did I leave anything out on that one? Okay, just want to make sure. All right, so the first section is of the codes is to identify the purpose, which is to permit backyard chickens upon single-family residential properties. So that is one of the key components. These regulations apply to only single-family or properties developed with a single-family detached house only, not duplexes or threeplexes or fourplexes, but only residentially zoned properties that have a single-family house, or they can have an agricultural zone, which some of our older properties do that haven't been rezoned yet, that are used for single-family detached housing purposes. So these rules are intended to apply for only single-family homes. These regulations and the keeping of backyard chickens shall not be considered to fall under the Unified Development Code interpretation and definition of agricultural general, as defined in 411.030A9, which currently allows for livestock on properties within the city that are in the residential estate zoning, and then requires a conditional use permit. So this section that allows backyard chickens is exempt from those Unified Development Code provisions. The keeping of backyard chickens shall be utilized for residential purposes only, and no commercial agricultural production shall be permitted. That would then fall under a different land use under our zoning code. HOAs, the regulations put forward tonight are not intended in any way to limit the ability of homeowners associations to enforce private restrictions regarding the keeping, owning, or maintaining of backyard chickens. For the purposes of this code, backyard chicken shall mean chickens of the female sex and does not include male chickens or roosters or other fowls such as, but not limited to, peacocks, turkeys, guinea fowls, or other waterfowl would not be permitted as currently drafted in this ordinance before you. There are definitions for backyard chicken coop or coop, backyard chicken run or run, backyard chicken tractor or tractor, as well as definitions for the humane standards of care and the definition of nuisance for related to the keeping of backyard chickens, which also references other sections of our code that also define nuisances in 245060 and 515450. It shall be unlawful for any person to keep or otherwise maintain backyard chickens on a single-family residential property unless they are kept in accordance with the provisions of this chapter. Shall be further unlawful for any owner, renter, or leaseholder to allow backyard chickens to be kept or maintained on any property in violations of this chapter. And again, the commercial use of backyard chickens is prohibited. Staff, in researching other communities, did find that a majority of them had a permitting required process. And so staff has proposed a permit to be required before being allowed to have backyard chickens. The city would issue a annual, but it would be a 2-year permit per application. So each chicken permit would be valid for a time of 2 years. Yes?
Did you say the majority of cities require permitting?
The majorities of cities that I research, yes.
Okay, but I'm trying to think of one in eastern Jackson County that does.
I don't believe Lee Summit or Independence do.
Yeah. Okay.
But other cities in and around the metro area do.
Okay.
So in looking at this, we didn't just focus on trying to make it Independences or Lee Summits. We looked at a variety of cities throughout the metro area, including Overland Park, Liberty, Gladstone, to try to get ideas of what to put into this.
All right. Thank you. I just wanted to understand that. Yep.
Since Councilmember Fowler broke the seal here, so on the permitting question, is our permitting process proposed in this ordinance similar to the other permitting you found? It seems like what's proposed here currently may be a little more restrictive, requiring basically codes to go out and review the structure. Is that in line with what you've seen before, or do they just have a piece of paper that says you can have chickens in some areas?
No, it is similar to what, and this specific section in the permitting requirements in reviewing the city of Overland Parks, that is what this one is based upon. Overland Park, over the past 2 years, completed a test or a pilot study of allowing backyard chickens in the city, and then just recently updated and amended their codes. in November. So those are the most recent backyard chicken regulations that have been adopted by a community within the metro area.
Okay.
So that is why we, in looking for provisions and in hearing from a variety of stakeholders that we talked to between January and now, a lot of interested parties did want to see some sort of permitting requirement so that before somebody does have backyard chickens, that the city has record of it and then has enforcement capabilities to know that that it's going to meet all of the required setbacks, number of chickens, that they have everything in place before they get chickens, and that there is a initial inspection process of the property by the city to make sure that everything is in place before that chicken permit would be approved.
And Mike, didn't you also tell me that in Overland Park, when you checked with them, the majority of the complaints that they received were from non-permitted as opposed to permitted homes?
Yes, that is correct. They said they have had 0 to maybe 1 or 2 complaints about any property that got a backyard chicken permit. The complaints come from properties that did not get a permit and are not following the regulations.
Your Honor, Mike, isn't it true that originally when all this was coming down, it was asked that we look at Overland Park and Lee Summit and other surrounding areas, even across the state, to see what they were presenting as far as chicken ordinances? That's the reason you went to Overland Park and et cetera. Wasn't that what we were asked to do?
Staff did cast a wide net in terms of trying to find best practices from a variety of different places that then coincided or were able to be integrated into the various viewpoints and opinions that staff has heard from again, those variety of stakeholders regarding the ordinance creation. Okay, so I'll keep going. So the permit would be for a 2-year period. Backyard chicken permits would not be transferable to a future owner of that property, or not transferable to another property that is owned by the same property owner. It is a property to have chickens for this owner on this property. Basic application requirements would be the applicant's name, contact information. If it's not the property owner, somebody who's renting would need to get the property owner to sign off on that application. The street address, the requested number of chickens, and sufficient information or a site plan and other information to show that the conditions contained within this ordinance can and will be met. These are some general conditions for approval that were found in almost all of the other chicken resident or chicken ordinances, that the backyard chickens be kept or maintained at all times in a safe and sanitary manner, that the backyard chicken coop in which the backyard chickens are confined will be adequately lighted and ventilated, and is constructed and maintained to keep that in a sanitary and clean condition. The health and well-being of backyard chickens will not in any way be endangered. The keeping of backyard chickens will not harm the surrounding neighborhoods or disturb the peace or quiet. Keeping of backyard chickens will not cause fouling of the air by offensive odors or create unreasonable annoyance or discomfort due to odors. The backyard chickens will not unreasonably annoy humans, endanger the life, health, and safety of other animals or welfare of other people. Backyard chickens will not repeatedly run or be found at large, will not damage or deposit excretory matter on the property of anyone other than their owner. The backyard chickens will not make disturbing noises. The applicant or any person who will share in care, custody, or control of the backyard chicken is not currently in violation of other applicable city, state, or federal laws pertaining to the care or control of animals. The application process, the city would inspect, we would inspect the property to sign off on the measures put in place to make sure that the backyard chickens are being kept in compliance with these regulations. There is a permit fee that the city could attach to these to cover the expense of city staff review time and inspection. Performance standards, so this is where we get into kind of the meat of the regulations. In terms of number of chickens allowed, city staff proposed and mirrored the Overland Park ordinance based upon their experience. Properties from basically 1/5 of an acre or 0.2 to 1/2 an acre, 0.549 acres would be required to have a permit with a maximum of 3 chickens allowed. 1/2 acre to just under an acre would still require a permit, and they would be allowed a maximum number of 6 chickens. And 1 to 3 acres in size, a permit is required, and the maximum number of chickens allowed is 12. Over 3 acres, there is no permit and no maximum.
Mike, one of the ordinances, I don't remember if it was Overland Park or Lee Summit, mimicked that greater than 3 acres, no limit. But at the same time, if I'm not mistaken, they also said that in that no limit that the chickens had to be 400 feet from the nearest residence. This would not allow for any restriction on a linear property where there may be 7 or 8 homes. Has that been considered?
It was considered, yes. There is nothing that would, even if it doesn't require a permit, there's nothing that would prevent city council from adopting a regulation that could still be enforced.
Okay.
So if council wishes to add in a separation such as that, that certainly could. And even if a permit wasn't required, that could still be enforced.
I recall, was that Lee Summit or was that Overland Park?
I believe it was Overland Park.
Okay.
I did speak with Lee Summit, and they said that even though they don't require a chicken permit, most of their enforcement comes from them driving around and seeing chicken enclosures that don't comply with the code and stopping and then enforcing the provisions of the code. So even without the permit process in Lee Summit, they're still able to enforce those sections of the code that adopted their chicken ordinance. I would like to point out that under this, that the number of backyard chickens allowed under this provision shall not count under 215030 number of animals. So the current restriction under 215030 of number of animals limits property owners to having no more than 4 adult cats or dogs. And these regulations these are exempt from that, except as specifically modified in the section of the code, and I'll go over that in a minute. In terms of the property setbacks and where backyard chickens can be kept, chicken enclosures could not be kept in any front yard or street side yard, which in our code basically is defined as 2 front yards. So if you have a corner lot, you have 2 front yards. So would only be allowed in a side yard or a rear yard, and the setback to any of these enclosures would be 10 feet to the side yard or 25 feet to the rear yard, and then a maximum height of 10 feet. I know that Lee Summit Code has a separation from the chicken enclosures to the nearest house on the adjacent property. And in talking with both of those two, staff chose to go with the one that is more similar to Overland Parks. And the reason because from a staff perspective and from an applicant perspective, it is very difficult to know the distance from your chicken coop to your neighbor's house without walking onto their property. And so from a staff perspective, if we go with the permit section, from a staffing standpoint, it's very difficult for us to verify those types of measures and measurements of structures on one property versus how it relates to the structure on the other property. Our historical plot plans only go back so far. In terms of the setback, making it at 25 feet versus 10 feet or 5 feet, or similar to another residential accessory structure like a shed or something like that, the thought was that the chicken coop or chicken enclosure should be closer to the house on the property from which has chickens than be closer to the house of the property next door that does not have chickens. So if we put it at the very back of the property line, it actually ends up being closer in some ways to the house next door than it would be maybe to their own house. And so it was the idea being move it up to keep it as to not as affect the neighboring property owners as much. And then a property owner in submitting a plot plan or a site plan for their chicken permit application would only have to worry about showing how it meets the dimensions on their own property, not their property and their neighbor's property. So that's just some of the thought process that went into that, which may differ from some of the other communities that we looked at.
So, quick question then. The setback, we have a coop and we have a run, and the run is covered and all that, so it's not just the coop building, it's the run as well. So if you have a 30-foot run that's covered, that would be on this same plat, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The other important section of this is that backyard chickens shall only be kept upon the property which is the principal residence of the owner of the backyard chickens. So if somebody were to have 2 or 3 different properties and want to keep backyard chickens on one of their properties that is not their principal residence, they would not be permitted to do so. All properties containing backyard chickens shall have a perimeter fence. The 6 foot in height that I proposed on here was so that we wouldn't run into issues where fence heights in other sections of the building code are required to be a certain height before you can do certain things. And so wanted to have that be consistent. So for example, you can't put in a pool or a hot tub without a 6 foot 6 foot fence with a self-latching gate. And so if anybody out here wanted to have a pool and chickens, they would have to have that 6 foot fence. And so if somebody had chickens and went in and put in a 4 foot fence and then decided later on, I want to have a pool, they would have to tear out that entire 4 foot fence and put up a 6 foot fence. So trying to think ahead on that, but I certainly think that one could cause some concern.
Your Honor.
Yep.
So if somebody has an existing fence, is this an additional fence like it would be for a pool? Or is their existing fence enough to cover this section of the code?
The way it is currently written, because of this provision, they would have to install a new fence.
Okay.
But that's certainly something that council could choose to amend.
So even if they have an existing 6 foot privacy fence, that would not be enough?
If they had an existing
Yeah.
6 foot fence, that would count, yes.
Okay,
If they had an existing 4 foot.
second fence, like a pool, it's gotta be around, the pool specifically.
Or it can be around the perimeter of the property.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
And the thinking behind that is, should a chicken escape from their coop or their enclosure or their run, that there's a secondary security measure to keep them on their own property instead of getting out to other people's property. Chicken coops must be inspected, well ventilated. For properties less than 3, so the floor area of the backyard chicken or a pen must equal 10 square feet of area per backyard chicken. For properties less than 3 acres, the maximum square footage for a chicken enclosure is 200 square feet. Backyard chickens must be housed in a coop or roof structure, attached pen or detached mobile pen while they are unattended by the keeper. During daylight hours, when attended by the keeper, the backyard chickens are allowed in a completely fenced-in yard. Again, there's the fenced-in, another provision there for the chicken coops and runs must be located within a fenced-in yard. No chicken coop shall be in an area of the property designated as a frontage or street side setback. Chicken enclosures kept free and dry. Some of this is repetitive.
Mike, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, could you tell me again, what'd you say about 200 square feet?
That would be the maximum size of a chicken coop or a chicken enclosure.
For the chicken enclosure, and then per chicken, you have to have 10 square feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could have 20, okay, I got it.
Just for reference, the maximum size of an attached or a detached accessory structure that requires a permit in the city is 250 square feet. So like a 2-car detached garage. Anything under that does not require a permit. Anything over that does require a permit. Building materials. Chicken tractors, pens shall be designed to provide safe and healthy living while minimizing adverse impacts. Coop or tractor shall be enclosed on all sides and shall have a roof and doors. Access doors must be able to be shut and locked at night. Minimum opening size. Materials. All backyard chicken structures shall be constructed of permanent standard building materials. These materials shall be uniform for each element of the structure, so that the walls are made of the same material, the roof has the same shingles or other covering, and any windows or openings are constructed using the same materials. The use of scrap, wasteboard, sheet metal, other similar materials is prohibited. Materials used shall be impervious to moisture so that the surface does not permit the absorption of fluids, and that can be done through sealing with paint or using a material that is impervious to moisture. The backyard chicken pen shall consist of sturdy wire fencing. Other general requirements, keeping a backyard chicken shall be done in a manner to adequately meet the performance standards set forward in this section. Keeping a backyard chicken shall be done so as to control noxious odors, breeding of rodents, flies, or other insects. Backyard chicken owner shall take necessary actions to reduce the attraction of predators and rodents and the potential infestation of insects and parasites. All grain and food stored for the use of backyard chickens shall be kept in a rodent-proof container. Live slaughter of backyard chickens is prohibited. It shall be further unlawful to picket or tie any such animal in any of the streets or right-of-way for the purposes of grading or feeding. Backyard chicken owner must provide for the storage and removal of the backyard chicken manure, and manure shall be stored in a fully enclosed structure with a roof or a lid. No more than 3 cubic feet of manure shall be stored. Backyard chickens shall not be allowed to run at large. No cat, dog, or other domesticated animal which kills a backyard chicken that is at large will for that reason will be for that reason considered a dangerous animal. Odor and noise regulations again. Provisions again to prevent predators, rodents, insects, and parasites. Feed and water. Chickens shall be provided feed and clean water. And then just a section that is in our code amendments regarding unlawful acts and violations. It shall be unlawful to keep backyard chickens in violation of this article. It should be unlawful for any owner, renter, or leaseholder of property to allow them to be kept in violation. Any person who violates provision of this section or fail to comply with the requirements in shall be punished upon conviction pursuant to our standard violation section, which is under 100.80080C of the city code. So those are all of the many provisions that were included in the new section allowing backyard chickens. I'm happy to answer any questions specifically on those, or I can go into the other 2 code sections.
Councilmember Caleb?
Would you come up with a 10-foot height?
In looking at other cities' regulations, that seemed to be kind of right in the middle. The minimum height or the maximum height for a detached accessory structure is 16 feet. So a storage shed in the backyard can be 16 feet, so it's not as high as that. But wanted to kind of have something that would allow for something a little bit taller.
So a chicken house is actually a storage shed.
Councilmember Culpepper?
Under our section, under our definition of the code, it would, building code has a different definition for a detached accessory structure for non-living purposes. So I understand the question or the comment, but our building code would look at that differently.
As I went through and researched chicken coops, what I found was the recommended height for 3 to 6 chickens is 3.5 feet. So if you have it 3 feet off of the ground, it seems that even 7 feet would be sufficient in height. I kind of joked and I said, well, if you make it 10 feet tall, who's going to be able to reach the eggs in the roosting area? But it just seems like 10 feet is really excessively tall.
Okay.
But Mike, that's a recommended or a maximum height, correct?
Yes.
So having been in many chicken coops in my life, I really like them to be tall enough that I can walk in them, because it hurts my head. I don't mean to be sarcastic about that. My daughter has raised hers, a different situation, 10 acres, but it's really nice, especially from a cleaning standpoint, because the coop is the home for the chickens. I think what Councilmember Culpepper led me to believe is that that coop is more of a box for the chicken, and I don't think that's what the coop is defined as. So 10 feet high may be extraordinary, 7 feet high would be high enough for me.
Okay.
But it's got, in my book, it'd have to be higher than 6, 7, whatever. Go ahead.
Okay.
Mike. Yes.
So the next set of, the next amendment is to section 215030, number of animals, residential restriction of the code, shall be amended to read as follows. Currently, it says it shall be unlawful for any person to own, keep, or harbor more than 4 adult animals over the age of 6 months in a zoned residential neighborhood. 5 or more will constitute a commercial kennel. The new additional language says, for purposes of this section only, up to 2 backyard chickens as permitted under the 215127 will be allowed in addition to the maximum number of 4 animals. So, for example, somebody who could have 4 dogs could have 2 chickens. However, somebody who has 4 dogs could not have 6 chickens. They would be limited to those 2. And in speaking with some of the other cities, I became more aware of chicken behavior, and apparently, especially with chickens, they like, for the health of the chicken, it's better to have them in pairs for their health and happiness. And so that's why I didn't further limit it to 1 or something. But we had heard some concerns over the ability to have 4 dogs, 4 cats, or 4 cats, and then 12 chickens all running on the same property. And there were some concerns with this. So this is attempting to kind of reach a middle ground, if you will.
But you could have 2 dogs and 3 chickens.
The way it is written, it is still up to 2 chickens.
Even if you only have 1 or 2 dogs?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I have a question on that one, I guess. So on the restrictions for the property size, you begin with 3 chickens, and yet now we're going to 2 chickens. So if somebody takes the expense of going to build a coop and everything for 3 chickens, and they have an assortment of animals, not necessarily dogs, cats, but the assortment of animals, pets, why did we just pick the 2 when we start out with allowing 3 chickens to start out with? I mean, to me, it makes sense to say 3 chickens because that's where our minimum is, or maximum is on a smaller lot size.
Certainly understand that, yes. I think in general, when I crafted the code and in working with others, we felt it better to allow it for the most strict or the lowest amount, and then based upon council feedback, we could always take provisions out, making it less restrictive. In general, it's more difficult to write a very lenient, less restrictive ordinance and then try to add things in as we go.
Okay,
so
thank you.
Certainly understand that question.
Okay.
The third section is an amendment to section 215125, the livestock and farm animals section, which currently reads no livestock or farm animals, including poultry, even if considered pets, shall be kept. I have added the language except as otherwise permitted under 215127 backyard chickens. So wanted to just make that reference there to clarify, so that it wouldn't be interpreted somewhere down the line that if that section hadn't been changed, that nobody could have backyard chickens still. So just a little bit of cross-referencing within the code. The final provision is that in order for, should this be adopted tonight or down the road, in order to give time for city staff to get the necessary application forms in process, determine the exact process by which we would handle these permit applications, who would be the reviewing agency, who would be the inspection agency, we would ask to postpone any application of this to a date certain, such as April 1st, as kind of the start of accepting backyard chicken applications, and correspondingly the start of enforcement for anybody who would be out of compliance, to then give people who may have chickens right now or other animals that wouldn't be in compliance time to react and adjust to that. So we would propose a little bit of time after adoption of an ordinance to allow staff the time to build in the process, as well as time for the residents to adjust rather than having it be in effect the next day.
Can I have one more question? If this weren't to pass tonight, is there any way that one could, I hate to use the term grandfather, but it's the only one I know, grandfather the existing issues? It seems like, before this came up back in the fall, I didn't know we had chickens in town, it didn't bother me. I would, if this if this doesn't pass, it would trouble me to take chickens away from people that already own them. I understand that if you don't have chickens and you can't have them, then nobody's gonna be harmed emotionally. But if we have chickens in Blue Springs, and I know some people have chickens that they dearly love, it troubles me that we would have to take those away. So is there some way that could be blended in to this ordinance, some kind of an amendment made that in the event this doesn't pass,
Let me
then
answer
that could
that.
happen?
They're in violation if they got them right now.
I understand that. I'm just
So,
asking the question, sir.
You can't keep it because they're in violation.
I would defer to the city attorney on that one, but as harsh as it sounds, anybody who has backyard chickens currently has them illegally and shouldn't have them in the city. So the idea of creating a legal non-conforming use, which is the other term in our code for being grandfathered in, means that you were in compliance under the code at the time you had them.
Right.
And then the law changed, which says you can no longer do something, so that means you're legally not conforming anymore. The situation you presented would be an illegally non-conforming use, which is not allowed in our codes. So it'd be difficult to craft, but I'm not an attorney, so I don't know how that could be done.
I know when we discussed this back in January, we used the term hens. And I know I have had conversations with you and staff. So what is I know that, and I'm going to jump right in here. So I do know that with ducks, more space is recommended and required for them to be happy ducks. So I'm curious what it would take to make an adjustment to this, where we would have in your little chart where you put how many chickens, if we added a second column and put ducks in there, I do believe it would have to be fewer number than chickens because of the space required. I don't know what that would entail.
The first it would entail would be to have to include or modify the definition of backyard chicken to include ducks. And however that would be titled, whether we just left it as backyard chickens does include ducks, would be fine. And then it'd probably be the easiest. We wouldn't have to change every time we use the word chicken to hen. And then have any specific regulations related to ducks listed or a separate column in terms of number. And it could be another column, or based upon, we could do it not based on property size, but just do it based on in general, no more than 2 ducks or no more than 4 ducks on any size property in the city. So kind of a variety of ways that could be handled.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Got some more? You
Nope,
done?
my presentation is done.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions or.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the council? Do you have anything amendments or anything? Or do we want to take up,
Well, Your Honor, if I
and
may,
introduce?
if going off of what you're stating, and with the organization that has brought this all forward, all along they've included ducks. So Councilman Culpepper's idea of changing that to where you add those ducks in, I think would be appropriate to answer that group that raised all those signatures. And though they didn't get the resolution passed, they did have a significant number of people that were wanting that terminology of chicken and ducks being used.
Let's do this. Let's introduce it. Get a second, and then we'll open the door for any amendments anybody would like to make.
All right, I'll introduce it, Your Honor.
All right.
First reading of Bill 5196, an ordinance amending Chapter 215, Dogs, Cats, and Dangerous Animals of the Code of Ordinances, City of Blue Springs, Missouri, adding Section 215.127, Regulation of Backyard Chickens, and amending Section 215.125, Livestock and Farm Animals, and Section 215.030, Number of Animals Residential Restriction.
Your Honor, move the bill be approved on its first reading and proceed with the second.
Is there a second? Second?
Second.
Okay. Now,
Second.
are there any amendments that you'd like to offer at this time?
Yes.
About the ducks?
Let's do ducks. I would go ahead and ask that we amend the chart. Well, first, the definition. We would have to amend the definitions. And the copy that I have, I mean, it's scattered throughout, so there's a lot of chickens that has to turn into ducks.
If we kept the definition of backyard chicken to include ducks, then we could make that change there. Any other provisions where it says that this specifically prohibits any other fowl or anything, we would have to strike that provision.
Okay. I also would like to see us change that chart on the number.
Okay.
I've got so many papers.
Your Honor, I
here.
thought we were gonna do one amendment at a time. Is this two amendments? Is she making another amendment, or is
No,
this
we're gonna
going
do
with the
one-
ducks?
we're gonna-
Okay, we'll do one
we're
at a
doing an
time. I
amendment
thought we
to
were on the
include
same thing.
ducks is
That's
what
all
we-
right.
That's what's being discussed right now. So we just need staff to figure out the best way to put it in so ducks are included.
Do we have a second on that? Are we in discussion on that amendment?
Yeah.
Well, I believe that, with all due respect to the amendment, I don't think we have the husbandry aspect of duck raising and the needs of the ducks, the coop, the free space, how they're raised, what the structure of the thing. They're not meant to be in a, at least my understanding, they don't really like to be in a coop. They like range of the yard. It seems like we would be changing something on the fly, to speak of, that maybe we need a little bit more research on the husbandry of the duck and how to handle that if we're gonna approve this amendment.
Okay. Staff?
This was written with
Have the same
backyard.
requirements as chickens, or?
If all we did was change the definition, they would fall under the same requirements contained herein. If ducks were added, staff could be directed to come back with a further code amendment to tailor some of these restrictions to ducks as well within the very near future is certainly an option.
We're gonna have our city attorney give an opinion on this.
It sounds like what Mike's saying is there'd be a number.
There we go.
There'd be a number of considerations that might be different for ducks than they would be for chickens. So if the council were to proceed forward with approving this ordinance as is written, you could still direct staff to come back with additional provisions specific to ducks, and then it would amend further the newly adopted sections of 215, 217 for ease on, if it sounds like for Mike, if that's easier for staff to research the specific issues as to
And I'm
what
happy-
regulations would go for
I'm
ducks.
happy to withdraw my motion based on further investigation.
Your Honor, well, I think if what I heard Mike and the city attorney say, we could add ducks to the definition and then come back with provisions later. So we don't have to withdraw the motion of adding ducks. That way it's passed in the ordinance. We would just add additional measures to care provisions to the ordinance later on. The definition would be fine, it would be locked to add ducks.
But the provisions are part of adding ducks.
I don't think the definition is part of adding ducks. I think if we define it in the code that way, the definition's locked.
But if you don't define it, then you've added a term and you have no additional provisions.
So what the result would be is, until additional provisions are added, ducks would be held to the chicken care ordinance. And so then they would be able to have ducks, treating them as chickens.
No,
But then if we brought other ordinances later, then it could be added.
Excuse me, but
better care provisions.
but from the husbandry aspect, I don't think that's fair to the ducks.
And what information do you have that
I wasn't
validates
prepared
that
to
opinion?
bring up a definition of that. I think in my opinion, if we're going to do that, we should have the information ahead of us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That's your
Okay, so
opinion.
you have withdrawn.
I have withdrawn my motion.
Okay, so now we're back to the ordinance as it stands. It deals with chickens. Are there any amendments as it deals with chickens? If not, I'm gonna call for a vote.
Yeah, I got discussion, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
I guess I would ask staff, what percentage of the lots, residential lots, are below a 0.49 acres in the city?
If you bear with me for a moment, I have that information. I just need, my
Okay.
computer went quiet on me.
I have it as well, Mike.
Yeah,
if
I
you,
provided
okay.
Councilmember
So Mike, I asked that question, Mike, too. The number of lots, residential lots, that would be applicable to this code under .2 are 23%, and then the number between .2 and .49 are 73%. So the total number of lots below .49 are 96%. And so I don't want to steal your thunder. I'm glad to make my comments on that, but you can go ahead.
I
and
did not
continue.
know the information, so
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that, yeah, because it seems like half-acre lots are pretty good size, so 96% of our residential lots are less than a half an acre.
Yes.
So-
But, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I guess that leads me down, first of all, let me just say that there are people that support backyard chickens. I got letters from people that do not support backyard chickens. I definitely see there's people on both sides, and it's important to me to find a balance, you know, of both of those interests. I think both, even though I may believe that there's probably more people in this whole city that would say that they're not for it, I perfectly respect the rights and the pursuit of happiness of anybody in the minority as well, so they need to be heard as well. When the prior ordinance was before us a couple weeks ago, I noticed the word in there about guidelines, and I said, hey, guidelines are not requirements, and I thought that was on the extreme, and I could not support that, even to put that on the ballot without some stronger language that I think would appease some of our residents who just don't want chickens, okay? Our home association, I've heard one home association already changed to not allow chickens since all this discussion's been going on, and I appreciate what the homes associations do. At the same time, I look at this and I see the addition of permitting, inspections, a residential site plan requiring 6-foot fence and reducing the number of chickens for lots less than 0.49 acres. To me, these are all too collectively restrictive. To me, it's gone extreme on the other side now. And I just don't know how anybody would ever pay everything that they'd have to do. Site plans, we've seen site plans, and staff would be requiring this, that really are inexpensive, but we can also have a site plan that requires land surveying, and reviewed and verified by registered professional engineers. So that can get very expensive. I don't know, to me, this ordinance says we would allow chickens, but not really. So, and I have talked to some of the people I've talked with on this that are for chickens. Some of them would suggest that we just not approve this versus approving this one because they feel it is too restrictive. So I guess without some of these things being taken out from the information I've seen, I don't know that I can support this ordinance the way it is.
Go ahead.
I wasn't done making changes, so.
Okay. We were almost ready to vote on it, I thought.
I know. And I brought this up earlier. I would like to see the height of the chicken coop reduced, which will give a little more privacy to the neighbors.
You want to put that in form of a motion?
Move to adjust that to 7 feet.
If you could outline the section of the code that it's listed in to make sure that we're tracking it exactly. I'm sorry. This is too important. We want to make sure I've got it
Yes.
right.
All right, let's back up and go to my page 3. Let's see. Keeping of backyard chickens. I'll come across that height in a minute. I would like to add, and we say it's not commercial, but I would like to see it spelled out that we are not selling eggs. I'm looking for the height. Did you find the height?
Mike, can you help her out there?
Yes, it is provision 215127 F3B.
Thank you, Mike.
We have a winner.
All right. Maximum height, I'd like to change that to 7 feet.
Is that a motion?
That's my motion.
Is there a
Change it
second
to
on your
7
motion?
feet.
You wanna
Seeing
do them
none, if asked
individually?
for lack of a such.
Are we gonna do individually motions and vote on individually motions? Is that what you're,
On this particular one, she's made a motion, I asked for a second.
okay?
Also, I'll second it, sir.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So any further discussion on that?
Yes, sir, 7 feet makes sense to me, however, that allows for no pitch. So I would have to ask you if you wouldn't mind changing that to 8 feet, because then you could have a pitch and a slope and a drainage coming off of it. Otherwise, it's flat roof.
The way we
You can't get in
define,
it otherwise.
we define height in our building code and in our UDC and other sections of our code to be the midway between the pitch and the eave.
Okay, then never mind. Sorry, Susan.
Okay, we got a motion, and who, you did the second?
I'll second if he's pulling the second back.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the height? Seeing none. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
No.
Okay, we got one no. Okay, 6-1. Is there any other amendments?
Councilman Fowler brought up the site, I'm sorry, I should have marked all this stuff on my
Yes,
bill, I
you should have.
apologize. The site plan,
Residential site plan is on the application.
I don't, my motion is that we don't require a site plan. I think we do need to have the permitting process.
If we bring up the permit, you can see that it's on there.
Yes, it is on there. This is still just a draft of a permit application. It does say there that an application should provide enough evidence to prove that they're going to meet the provisions of the code, which typically on a site plan, we would require that to show separation and setbacks, so.
But that's not actually part of the ordinance then? It's just a draft of the application, correct?
That's correct. There is no, I don't believe.
Okay, so I
there's
don't
any-
need to make a motion on that?
I don't believe there's any section where site plan is mentioned other than the application.
That is
Thank
correct.
you.
It's not showing on the ordinance.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call for a motion to approve on the first reading as amended.
No, Your Honor, I have additional comments to make.
You have Mr. Comments or amendment?
I have a motion to make.
Motion, okay, go
So-
ahead with your motion.
So Councilman Fowler brought up a good point. Well, I guess he asked for that information. The way this currently reads, the restriction this is, there already 23% of residential lots in the city are immediately prohibited from having chickens. That leaves the 3/4 left of the city, the 73%, that between 0.2 and 0.49, which is most of the city, are still limited to 3. So that's in no way consistent with the majority of the chicken ordinances in the region. Even if you want to allow for permitting and that sort of thing, this is exceptionally restrictive. And as Councilmember Edmondson mentioned, we're having residents go through this additional cost, an additional process to limit it to 3 chickens maybe. That depends on if they have other animals, and then there are 2. So we're going through all this cost, all this effort, another fence, all for 2 to 3 chickens. And so that seems exceptionally prohibitive to me. I think at the minimum, we should remove the restriction that is basically the 0.2 to 0.49 altogether. Just leave it at 0.2 to 0.99 with the 6 maximum chickens allowed. It still leaves in the conversation about the additional animals, because you may have somebody that has 0 animals but wants 6 chickens, and that would seem reasonable. Or if you have somebody that has 1 little chihuahua but now can only have 2 chickens because they have a small dog, I think there's some nuances there too.
Is there a motion?
So at the very minimum, I'm going to motion that we remove the first line of the graph, the 0.2 to 0.49. So essentially just make it say 0.2 to 0.99 be maximum 6 chickens allowed.
Does staff understand that motion, the council?
No, we're looking for the exact graph we're referring to.
It's on page, well, it's on my page 107.
It's
I don't know.
F1A.
Page 5, thank you.
Yeah, F1A, yes. So just make the second line say 0.2 to 0.99. And that's consistent with most of the surrounding region.
Okay, so you've heard the motion. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay, any discussion
Yes,
on
sir.
his amendment?
I think it's relevant to say that the greater than 3 acres with no chicken permit and no maximum should be then very thoroughly changed so that homes that back up to the 3 acres, or there's one off of Jellison Road as an example, or my back lot. there's no protection from the maximum number of chickens on the large lots that back up to those. I think that's, needs to be addressed maybe in a different motion. I don't know, but it's on both sides of it, Councilmember, I think.
Okay, we have a motion second, and we had discussion. All in favor of the amendment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Let's roll call it.
Councilmember Fowler,
Aye.
Erickson,
No.
Aye.
Culpepper,
No.
Kaler,
No.
Levesey,
Aye.
Mayor Ross.
No.
Motion fails.
Okay,
I have another one, Your Honor.
all right.
Do you want to make a motion on the other end?
No.
Councilmember, okay. Well, I'll leave that one then for now. The other one I have a big concern about is the addition of the 6-foot privacy fence. There already is a section of this code that requires the lot that has chickens to be fenced. I don't know why we would add an additional 6-foot fence to that as well. That seems like, again, a cost prohibitive requirement for most of the people that are going to want to add chickens. And so I would motion that we remove that section, and I did not find it. Ms. Cheryl, I apologize.
Okay, I'll help you out.
That would be 3D is what I think that would be.
You got it, Cheryl?
And I would just remove 3D altogether. That would be my motion.
Okay, there's a motion to remove 3D. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second.
Discussion?
Yes.
My understanding is this is not a second fence. If they already have a fence around their property, then that's fine. This is not double fencing a lot.
It must be a 6-foot fence though, which, like I have a 4-foot chain link, it wouldn't be required. It would require me to put in another fence.
Or replace that.
Or replace it with the 6, yeah.
I can say with somewhat of an authority that a 4-foot fence will not stop most chickens, even if their wings are clipped. I know that from firsthand experience. And to your 4-foot chain link fence, that's even worse. If a chicken can see the other side, it'll get out. 6 feet may be adequate, but I know from experience that it is not in many cases.
Okay.
That's why the 4 feet, council member would not, I couldn't go for that at all.
So you got a motion, we had discussion on it. We're gonna roll call it on the amendment.
Councilmember Erickson,
No.
Edmondson,
Aye.
Culpepper,
No.
Kaler,
No.
Levesey,
Aye.
Fowler,
Aye.
Mayor Ross.
No.
Motion fails.
Your Honor.
Any other amendments?
I know Councilmember Culpepper withdrew her motion on ducks. I'd at least like to formally make the motion that we add the definition of ducks to the definition here in chickens. If it were to pass, which it seems like it won't, I would then direct staff to come up with additional care, but I think it's fair that we at least make that formal motion and have it on the record. So I make the motion, we add ducks to the definition of chicken.
Okay,
I
you
will
got
second it so we
got
can
a motion
discuss
and a
it.
second. Any discussion on it?
Yes, Your Honor. I have problems adding a term when we don't have any additional information. You could call it a duck, you could call it whatever you want to call it, but I really believe that we need to have some sort of definition on it. I'm not opposed to having ducks, but I think that we need to have more information included in the ordinance.
Okay, you got a motion and a second.
If I may, Your Honor,
Yeah.
discussion-wise, I know staff did say that that was something that could come back and they could provide that information to us at a later time. I know we passed ordinances in the past, like our solar ordinance. We passed a pretty restrictive ordinance to start out with. We came back and adjusted that in a period of time later based on input from staff and from residents. So I think there's a precedent to go ahead and make these changes or this type of a change to get that done so staff can go forward with that and try to meet the deadline that he's talking about, April 1st, of enacting this. So I think this is one way to help get that done and move forward with this.
So are we talking about bringing back additional information after we pass this if it passes, then at the next meeting, having additional information for those people who wish to have ducks, so they know what we're asking of them.
By the March 18th meeting,
I'm fine making that part of the motion.
I think that's something we can do.
All right?
Okay.
And
What
for
Any further discussion?
What ordinance was he talking about? Because I didn't hear him down here. Councilman,
I made reference to the solar ordinance where we initiated solar panels and we
thank you. I
restricted
just
it
didn't
to-
hear the solar part.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's what I was discussing, where it came back.
Yeah, let me see.
Okay, roll call.
Excuse me, Mayor, we're
The
checking on
amendment for striking D.
we're on
I mean, no,
adding
this
ducks.
particular one is to add ducks.
To the definition.
And we're checking to make sure that there aren't any conflicting sections of this
Well, no, we're not
ordinance.
getting into specifics on it at this particular point. You're supposed to come back with all that.
Okay.
Your Honor, I had a question before we do the vote on this. In ducks and solar, I understand, but that's a little bit different to compare a roof to a duck. But I understand you're trying to make a point, it's a valid one, but in that, using that as an example, that ordinance was passed and then we changed it. If this ordinance were to pass, I would rather come back and add ducks to it with the definition and say, staff, okay, fine, let's do that, but let's don't do it now on the fly until we know what information we have. I find it to be inconsistent with our procedures we've done in the past.
Okay. Roll call.
Councilmember Edmondson,
Aye.
Culpepper,
Aye.
Kaler,
No.
Levesey,
Aye.
Fowler,
Aye.
Erickson,
No.
Mayor Ross.
No.
Motion carries.
Okay, so we have the first reading with how many? 3 amendments? 2 amendments?
Two to pass, yeah.
How many?
Two.
With 2 amendments?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And then, Your Honor, for the purposes of expediting this, if somebody wants me to separate them because they would vote differently on this, please feel free. At the moment, I'm gonna make a motion that we remove the inspection and the permits requirements from the proposed ordinance.
Wow.
No second, okay.
Second, I'll second, I'm sorry.
Okay, we got
I was
a
letting the
motion.
process go.
Got a motion and a second. We're gonna really water it down here. Okay. All in favor of his amendment? Roll call it.
Are we going
Where are they?
to discuss that?
He's asking about discussion.
Okay,
I think we know where it's going.
I think we know where it's going.
that's fine.
All right, Councilmember Culpepper,
No.
Kaler,
No.
Levesey,
Aye.
Fowler,
Aye.
Erickson,
No.
Edmondson,
Aye.
Mayor Ross.
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, now let us get to the ones, another one?
Yeah, but this one may be one that I may get.
You might pass?
We might pass. If we go to one location where it says supervision, there is in section 215127C, yeah, there it is. She's got highlighted right there. It says supervision as defined in herein. Well, there is no definition of supervision. So I would like to offer one as a motion that has worked in other communities. The definition would be, under supervision shall mean that an owner, keeper, harborer, or maintainer of an animal is in a position which allows them to maintain visual contact with the animal and allow them to readily respond in the event that a threat is posed to the animal or the animal poses a threat to another human being or animal. That's my motion to add that, so we will have a definition of supervision.
I would second that.
They stopped typing. Did you get all of that?
Yes, and so that would be under
I second it?
215-127C. Is that correct? The definition.
I would second that.
The staff gave me this too to read, so it's,
Okay, so you got it then.
215.
You got it, staff?
We're hitting it just a second here, 215.
Under nuisance.
Y'all went away from it.
That was not the correct place,
Right there,
right here?
right under nuisance, yeah, so
Okay.
start a new one.
Okay, so here'd be just under supervision.
Or just
Can we do
supervision.
discussion while
We-
she's
Yeah.
typing?
I know staff has this, because they
Yes.
gave it to me, so.
Is it a new section then? Because you had a continuation of where it said supervision.
I think that if they put this under the definition, is that what you're doing?
Yes.
Yes, that's where we
Okay.
are putting it, Mayor. Where I was typing was where we talked about
Okay.
that where it didn't correspond, so we wanted to make sure it's in the right place.
Do we have that definition on all of our animal control? If we don't, we should.
I don't. I'm
Just
not
a
familiar
question.
enough with the rest of the animal control ordinance.
All right.
Well,
Okay, so staff has it then, you should,
So we still have to vote on that motion, but that, hopefully that would be appropriate.
I think that's a good one. You had a motion, do you have a second on that?
Yes, I second it.
Okay, had a motion and a second, and you see it on your screen in red. All in favor of that motion, I think I can just do a voice vote without having to roll call it. All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. It passed on a voice vote.
Unanimous.
Your Honor, I would like to go back to the section, I don't have the numbers up in front of me, the section that says greater than 3 acres can have an unlimited number of chickens. I would like to amend that to say that those chickens need to be no closer than 400 feet from the nearest residence.
Staff, can you find where he's talking about?
Do you have a
And
section?
that's
that-
mimicked in one of the other ordinances that we referred
It's
to
in
earlier.
that chart.
Can you give me a page?
Sorry, I was
Or-
looking at chicken.
Page 5. It's the F1.
Is this where you're talking, council member?
That is correct. Where it says greater than 3 acres, there's not a definition of that, but in the other ordinances that I referred to earlier, I think we talked, that was probably Overland Park, that if for greater than 3 acres, the chickens had to be no closer than 400 feet to the nearest resident. And I believe it was 400. It sounded like a good number to me.
He hadn't said a motion yet, he's talking about it. So is that a motion?
You motioning that one?
Yes, yes.
I
Okay.
will second that.
Okay, we got a motion and we do have a second on it. Okay, I'm waiting before we take a vote. Staff, have you found out where it goes?
Yeah, so you're wanting it just greater than 3 acres, and then,
Limit that distance in that section.
So no maximum. Let's see,
Okay.
so maybe a semicolon. It says, except that.
Okay, any discussion on that?
Did you say they
Now
have to be
let's vote.
400 feet away?
I'm sorry, sir, what?
You said 400 feet?
400, yes.
So, except any chicken enclosures must be 400 feet away from a neighboring
The
property.
enclosure or the chickens themselves.
Enclosure. Or,
chicken or enclosure
Okay,
must be.
you guys got, well, that's the
400 feet
motion.
away from the adjacent property.
Roll call to vote
On the motion?
on the motion. There's the
Councilmember,
amendment.
Councilmember Kaler,
Is this just for this amendment?
Just this
Yes.
amendment. Yes.
Yes.
Levesey,
Aye.
Fowler,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Edmondson,
Aye.
Culpepper,
Aye.
Mayor Ross.
I guess I could have voiced vote.
Unanimously.
Could have voiced it on that one. Okay, now what are we up to, about 4 amendments?
Yes, we are.
Okay, we're still on the first reading as amended with 4 amendments on it,
Yes.
okay? Roll call it,
Your Honor,
yes.
can we have some discussion before we vote?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ron.
Well, I guess, going from my previous discussions, this seems to still be, have a lot of restrictions in it. Boy, I hope I don't get this wrong from those that want chickens, but, at the moment,
It didn't pass.
in the collaborations and discussions I've had, I would be voting no. So, but And that makes me wonder if I shouldn't offer to table it to just get more feedback, because there's a lot been changed since we sat down here 20 minutes ago.
We've been discussing this for a long time.
Yes,
I don't
yes.
think there's a whole lot gonna change, that's gonna change any minds.
Your Honor,
Yes.
if, based upon the lead on that one, I know what was said about the grandfathering, I still would like to come up with some kind of, and I'll use a different word, some granting of asylum for the existing chickens and ducks that are here. It just seems, I know they weren't here legally, I get it, but I don't know if I could go into the house and take the chicken away.
Well, you want staff to do it.
I don't know.
Okay, let's roll call it.
Are we roll calling as amended?
As amended.
Okay.
Approve the first reading as amended with 4 amendments on it.
All right. Councilmember Levesey?
No.
Fowler?
No.
Erickson?
No.
Edmondson?
Aye.
Culpepper?
Aye.
Kaler?
This is for the whole ordinance, correct?
Right.
No.
Mayor Ross?
No.
Motion fails.
Okay. There's no need for second reading. The first reading failed. So we're going to go, I got 2 visitors forms, 2 Jennifers. Which Jennifer want to go first? Plumberg. Jennifer Plumberg? Where's Jennifer? She's not there? Okay, we'll go to the other Jennifer. Jennifer Irie. You got 3 minutes.
I don't know exactly what to say. This was all very interesting and enlightening. Thank you, Mr. Fowler and Mr. Levesey, for realizing how, and Mr. Edmondson, how restrictive this is. It's nowhere near anything any other community in the metro area has. The 6-foot fence requirement is ridiculous because they have a run, they have an enclosure that is required, that they are enclosed. It says in there, fully enclosed within a run. I challenge you to go home and find another ordinance anywhere in our area that has another 6-foot fence requirement. There is not one. I have reviewed them all. Another ordinance in the area that limits the number of chickens you can have based on how many other animals you have, there are not any. This is ridiculous. I don't know how to feel about the fact that it just failed. I mean, I'm glad that we don't have something so restrictive. I don't know what that means the next step is though. But you guys had said Lee Summit ordinance would be fine with you. That's not what was given. It was something so much more restrictive. You wouldn't allow any of it in when we tried to get it closer to Lee Summit. You just voted all of those revisions down. This is so frustrating. You have just proven everybody in the city right that you do not care what we have to say. And that's all I have to say.
We're gonna move on to mural announcements, and we're gonna go straight to thoughts to fund it. Quote, did you know that the human voice is the only pure instrument, that it has no other instruments, has what no other instruments have? It's like being the key of a piano, like between the keys of a piano. That's Nina Simone. I accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Your second.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. We adjourn. I am not happy.
She won't.
Thanks for
She pointed
being there.
at the document. Yeah, that's wrong.